Chapter 1403 Another Heavenly Body Tear. Ling Han, you killed my son, and today is the day I will make you compensate with your life. Sha Jing stated coldly. He could not tell Ling Han's cultivation level, but was still unafraid as he thought their cultivation levels were equal. However, just how many years had Ling Han cultivated? Could he be a match for him? They were both in the low extreme of the heavenly body tier, and he was confident that he could easily suppress Ling Han. He had to avenge the murder of his son, and as a great general, he naturally had special privileges, and as he had declared that it was to avenge the murder of his son, it could be considered absolutely justified, so he dared to commit murder fully in public in the imperial capital. Your son, Sha Yuan, attempted to kill me repeatedly. I killed him, but I have a clear conscience, Ling Han stated calmly. If you are dissatisfied about it, then I accept your challenge. Then die. As Sha Jing's origin power boiled, his aura as a heavenly body tier rolled out in an incredibly frightening manner. This was a suppression on the level of being, causing everyone in the proximity to collapse onto the ground. Only a few were exceptions, such as Zhao Luan. He naturally had the protection of the great general Zhao, just like Li Weiwei had the protection of the left minister. On Ling Han's side, there was naturally no issue with his and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden's protection. Hold on. Ling Han waved a hand, his eyes sweeping over the left minister, Sha Jing, and Zhao Jianbai. Then, he said, when I was at the majestic heaven sect, I had once been hunted down by someone, and my starship was destroyed. The culprit should be one of you, right? At the time, there were only those few heavenly body tiers that he had met, and Empress Luan Xing and Chu Qiuxue did not have the motive to do this. Yet the remaining three were suspects, especially Sha Jing and Zhao Jianbai. Humph, were you worthy of me making a move on you at the time? Sha Jing immediately retorted in disdain. Zhao Jianbai and the left minister also disdained from answering. They conducted themselves with dignity, so it was naturally impossible that they would answer whatever questions was asked of them. Ling Han looked confused. At the time, he had remembered the aura of the person who had ambushed him, but it was different from these three. This was also why he had asked directly. Perhaps, at that time, the person who ambushed him had deliberately changed his aura. With the abilities of the heavenly body tier, it was completely possible to have fooled the Ling Han of that time. But the problem was, the person who ambushed him at that time should have been completely capable of killing him directly, so why had he done something so unnecessary? Humph, even if you try to delay, no one will be able to save you. Sha Jing uttered coldly. He wanted to avenge the death of his son. Wait. The left minister stretched out an arm to block him. Brother Sha, Ling Han is a member of our Chaotic Star's majestic empire, and he has already advanced into the heavenly body tier at present, which is a great fortune of our empire. How could we fight amongst our own people? He killed my son, and you still want me to have a peaceful relationship with him? Sha Jing smirked coldly. This was really the greatest joke in the world. The left minister had decided he wanted to mend the relations between himself and Ling Han. He had broken through to the heavenly body tier at such a young age, so his future prospects would definitely be boundless. He had already made a mistake, and had no intention of making another. Brother Sha, I am the left minister of our empire. Before Her Majesty went into isolation, she has delegated the important matters of state to myself and Brother Du. The left minister brought Empress Luan Xing into the matter. This was a powerful weapon that could suppress everything else. True enough, Sha Jing looked slightly wary. The reign of Empress Luan Xing was extremely strict. Previously, she had already killed one of the great generals personally. If he deliberately disobeyed her, and was called for an accounting later on, then even if he was a great elite of heavenly body tier, a great general of the empire, so what? Brotherly, is Brother Sha's son not a citizen of our empire? Zhao Jianbai interrupted. This man is only a subject of the empire, yet dared to kill the son of a great general of our empire. If this is not severely punished, how could that be reasonable? That's right. Sha Jing immediately regained his resolution, not only due to Zhao Jinbai's argument, but also because the latter had made his position clear was siding with him. Brotherly, you should cooperate with us to suppress this violent criminal together, Zhao Jianbai persuaded. Even if Ling Han had just broken through into the heavenly body tier, they were all in the low extreme. If Ling Han put his life on the line to fight them, it would not be easily dealt with either. If 3 heavenly body tiers joined forces, their chances of safety was naturally greatly increased. The left minister couldn't help but be stuck in a dilemma. He wanted to protect Ling Han, but if it would lead him to become hostile with 2 great generals, he'd hesitate. Was it worth it? At present, though he had great authority, he still shared the rule with the right minister, and also because the 7 generals had not expressed their stand, the 2 ministers were equal in power. But if Zhao Jianbai and Sha Jing sided with the right minister, he would definitely be suppressed by the right minister. To offend 2 heavenly body tiers for the sake of one, it was not a worthy bargain. He thought for a moment. Then, with a wave of his sleeve, he said, "Since you have a personal grudge with him, you settle the grudge yourselves. I will not interfere." Father. Li Weiwei immediately jumped up. He said he would not interfere, but in truth, wouldn't that mean that he would allow them to do as they liked? Yet the left minister's expression was solemn, and he gave his daughter an imposing look. This daughter really gave him too many worries. It was time for him to seek a husband for her. She should become more reserved after she had become someone's wife. Though Zhao Jianbai and Sha Jing were not too satisfied, the left minister had clearly stated he would not interfere. That was not too bad either. At least they had one less very powerful barrier they would have to overcome. The both of them were experienced great elites of the heavenly body tier, and Ling Han had just barely broken through. How could it be that they couldn't deal with him easily with the 2 of them working together? Ling Han, you'd better kneel down and accept your punishment. As a subject, you deliberately disobeyed the law. Do you plan to have the great Ling Empire die for your sake? Zhao Jianbai exerted pressure on Ling Han using the name of righteousness. I'll go. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden stood up. She had just advanced into the heavenly body tier, and just happened to want a chance to test out her abilities. All right. Ling Han nodded. With him supporting her from the background, it should be fine. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden sent out a palm strike, and the whole wall was sent flying. She took a step out, her figure standing in midair. What? Seeing this scene, everyone had gone numb with shock. Without any external tool, being capable of standing in midair, this was heavenly body tier. Wang, there was actually another great elite of heavenly body tier by Ling Han's side. Now, it was 2 against 2, so it was really not easy to judge which side was stronger. Xiang Qingyun was both jealous and terrified. Why? Why was it that a boar from a small world could exceed himself in cultivation level? Why could he obtain the hearts of so many supreme beauties? And now, it was even more exaggerated. He actually had a female companion in the heavenly body tier. Yet he actually said that he wanted this female elite to stay behind and join him for some wine. Wasn't that courting death? Sha Jing and Zhao Jianbai all looked serious. Even though the heavenly phoenix divine maiden's aura was very unsteady, and they could tell with a single glance that she had just broken through to the heavenly body tier, anyone who had advanced into this cultivation level definitely could not be underestimated. After all, they themselves were also only in the peak stage of the low extreme. Miss, this matter is unrelated to you, so what need is there for you to interfere? Sha Jing decided to first attempt to drive a wedge between them. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden stood up highly, a pair of phoenix's wings opening behind her back. Each wing was as long as 1,000 miles. They fluttered lightly, and there were red clouds dancing around them. She opened her mouth and stated, "Ling Han is my husband." When these words were said, it had directly put a block on whatever Sha Jing had wanted to say afterwards. He wanted to avenge his son, so how could it be that he would not allow her to step out for her husband? Even he was envious at that. That was because even though he was also a great elite of the heavenly body tier, it was obviously impossible that he could marry a woman in the heavenly body tier as his wife as well, so how could he not be envious? Since that is the case, we can only meet on the battlefield. He drew out a saber. That was a treasured tool that had accompanied him for innumerable years on the battlefield, and he had long since refined it that they were mentally connected. Chapter 1404 Killed with a single slash. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden dared not underestimate him. She had advanced into the heavenly body tier from the pinnacle level of the sun-moon tier, so her power could surpass more than 5 stars but less than 6 stars. However, according to rumors, the 7 generals and left and right ministers were all 4-star geniuses, and added with the cultivation level of the peak stage of the low extreme and the boost from power of the nation, there should be a 2 to 3-star gap of power between the both of them. This was not a small gap. However, the heavenly phoenix divine maiden's bloodline was special. She possessed the power of a true phoenix, which could greatly increase her battle prowess. Furthermore, she had also learnt some secret techniques from Ling Han, and all these factors added together should grant her a further increase of 1 star of battle prowess. Thus, the gap between the battle prowess of both sides should be about 1 to 2 stars, so this fight would be worth fighting. Sha Jing gave a loud shout, and the divine patterns on the precious saber glowed one after another with his full power. An air of military might channeled out, soaring to the skies and sinking underground in a very terrifying manner. He was not a super genius, but if it was in mere terms of the numbers he had killed, he could possibly surpass such young king tiers like Ling Han and Qi Huangji. The bloodshed that he had experienced had condensed into an air of slaughter that had taken form. Those with a slightly weaker temperament would crumple with a single touch. We go up for the battle. Sha Jing shot up into the skies, like a shooting star that had swept past, which was going against its natural direction. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden naturally would not fear a battle. The wings on her back shook, and she similarly flew up into the skies. Boom! Neither of the 2 great elites spoke another word. They immediately went into battle positions and began to fight. Shock waves descended one after another, but they were blocked by the protective formation of the imperial capital, and the great commander of the imperial guards, Chu Choshua, also stood above the imperial capital. She raised her head to look at the skies, an expression of surprise on her face. When had there appeared another female great elite of the heavenly body tier in the chaotic star's majestic empire? Furthermore, though she had just stepped into the heavenly body tier, her battle prowess was incredibly astonishing. Though she was not an equal match for Sha Jing, she did not experience too much of a loss either. She advanced and retreated accordingly, not showing any sign of losing. Unfortunately, she was on duty, so she did not fly up into the skies to watch the battle. Yet, she still felt a burning curiosity. Where had this woman come from? Father. Zhao Luan called out softly, a disappointed expression as well as a frightening killing intent flashing through his eyes. Zhao Jianbai glanced at his son, and couldn't help but give a humph. He knew what his son was trying to say. He wanted him to kill Ling Han. He was really too childish. Ling Han could advance into the heavenly body tier, so could it be that you couldn't do the same? The moment he was in a dilemma, he would ask this father of his for help. Did Ling Han have a father in the heavenly body tier? He did not yet, he had still broken through to the heavenly body tier so quickly on his own. Hence, one would still have to depend on oneself. Zhao Jianbai sighed. Who asked him to have only a single son? Who was he going to help if not him? Ling Han, we go up to the skies and fight, he spoke up, his voice like a battle song, resounding loudly. Ling Han sat calmly, and asked, if I move, our empire will have 1 less elite. Are you sure you wish to seek your own death? This. Not just Zhao Jianbai, when everyone in the area heard this, which of them did not think that Ling Han was boasting too much? Zhao Jianbai was an experienced elite of the heavenly body tier, and had immersed himself in this cultivation level for innumerable years, so how could he be matched by you, a rookie who had just advanced into this cultivation level? Furthermore, though all of them were subjects of the chaotic star's majestic empire and could draw upon power of the nation, their official rank was different, so the degree of power of the nation they could draw on was also different. He was just a minor 7th-rank military officer, so how could he compare to a grand great general? What a joke. Zhao Jianbai laughed from extreme anger. Brat, though it is indeed extraordinary that you have broken through to the heavenly body tier at such a young age, if you underestimate the great powers of this world just because of that, do you not think that is too arrogant? Come, we go up into the skies for the battle. You are still unable to claim yourself as one of the great powers of the world. Ling Han stated calmly. Since you want a battle, I will accommodate you. He drew that dilapidated wooden sword. Though this thing was only sturdy, it was more than enough to deal with a mere cultivator in the low extreme of the heavenly body tier. When Zhao Jianbai saw this, his expression involuntarily became livid. Was this a weapon? It looks more like a stick to poke the coals, and you use this to fight me. Just how much are you belittling me? Good. 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 His face was livid. If I do not kill you here, then my surname is not Zhao. Ling Han took a step out, his right hand raising the wooden sword, and sent out a slash straight at Zhao Jianbai. It was extremely simple, merely a strike heading right at him. Zhao Jianbai was practically frothing blood in fury. At first, he used a battered sword to humiliate him, and now was just sending such a direct slash in such a disdainful manner at him. Did he think he was a weakling? Fine then, if you are so bold, that is your own fault for seeking death. His right hand shook, and a sword appeared in his grip, quickly stabbing at Ling Han's forehead. Directly aiming for his spirit. What? He was abruptly shocked. This strike from Ling Han was too fast. He had just waved his sword, but in the next moment, it had appeared in front of him. He hurriedly waved his own sword to parry the incoming strike, and was sure that with the sharpness of the divine sword in his grasp, one strike would not only immediately sever the coal-stirring stick, Ling Han would also be sliced in two and become two halves. The wooden sword descended. Pa, a crisp sound rang out. Zhao Jinbai's divine sword was actually sliced into two halves, and the wooden sword fell with practically no deterrence. At this instant, a murderous aura surged out of the sword's blade. It rolled out like smoke in an extremely frightening manner. Even Zhao Jianbai couldn't help but shiver. He had killed people like scything flax all his life, fighting on the battlefield, and could claim that he was a butcher. However, in front of this murderous aura, he was completely a junior, and was no match at all. The wooden sword fell, and he was directly slashed in two, his spirit destroyed as well. What? A powerful heavenly body tier elite had actually been killed with a single slash like that. How was this believable? Meanwhile, the left minister felt his heart constrict strongly. With his insight, he naturally could tell very clearly that Ling Han's abilities had reached an extent that he could easily overwhelm Zhao Jianbai, and that was why he had been successful with only a single slash. Of course, the murderous aura of this seemingly ordinary wooden sword was actually brimming over, so Zhao Jianbai practically did not even counter in the end. It was merely icing on the cake. Even if Ling Han had used another weapon, he would also have succeeded, except for the fact that it would only be a slight bit more difficult. As it turned out, not only had Ling Han advanced into the heavenly body tier, he had even surpassed him. This would have to be the battle prowess of the high extreme, at the very least. Otherwise, how could he have possibly killed Zhao Jianbai with a single slash? Ling Han withdrew his sword, and saw that the very ordinary-looking wooden sword in his grasp was actually exuding a dark shadowy light. Even he felt a strong shudder when he saw this, as if this was not a very ordinary wooden sword, but rather a divine sword that had fought on the battlefield for countless years. He knew that this sword was not ordinary, but he had never thought that its murderous aura would be so exposed when it had touched blood. The veined patterns on the wooden sword had visibly become more distinct. The patterns were very simple, yet there was also an indescribable majesty about it. A sword of massacre, directly destroying the spirit. He would have to slowly study it in future. He put away the sword, and turned to look at Zhao Luan. This proud prodigy was now completely dumbstruck. He had not regained his senses from the fact that Zhao Jianbai had died. He could not accept this. His father had battled for innumerable years, and yet was killed with a single slash from Ling Han. Only when he was focused on by Ling Han's icy eyes did he suddenly shudder violently and wake up from his shock. You actually killed my father," he said in a trembling voice. Suddenly, he turned towards the Left Minister. "Lord Left Minister, this person killed a great general of our majestic empire, which is no different from committing treason. I beseech you to execute the law of the empire, sir." "Fuck you." The Left Minister felt a muscle twitch violently in his cheek, and almost cursed. Wasn't that throwing him into the fire pit as well? Chapter 1405 Beaten by whom? The Left Minister felt awkward. Zhao Luan's request was actually very logical. A great general of the empire had died, and as the Left Minister, and presently the highest commander, he could not possibly overlook this matter no matter what. But the problem now was that Ling Han was too strong. He had been able to kill Zhao Jianbai with a single slash, so killing him could also be very easily and happily done. The Left Minister loved power, but if he was asked to give up his life for the sake of power, he would only snort derisively. He was cursing internally. The matter had already continued for such a long time. Why had the Right Minister and the other 5 generals not appeared? It was definitely not because they had not yet reached their destination, but rather because they had long since arrived. Previously, they had watched the battle in secret, and now none of them dared to step out. "I will pretend that I have not arrived, and know absolutely nothing. In future, no one would be able to say anything about my lack of action," they thought. "But fuck, you guys have screwed me over." The Left Minister's lip twitched madly. This was also because the power of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire was too poor. Aside from the Empress and the 9 kings, there was actually no one else who had reached the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. Now that the Empress and the 9 kings had gone into seclusion together, no one was capable of doing anything to Ling Han. This was also the weakness of relying on a single elite to bear the weight of an entire force. The moment this elite was absent, for example, if he had gone traveling or into seclusion, this force would become extremely fragile. "Lord Left Minister, please take vengeance for my father." Zhao Luan knelt down, his eyes streaming with tears. His father had died, so he was definitely sorrowful. However, only he himself knew how much of his tears was genuine grief, and how much of it was mere exaggeration. There were many people watching the excitement, but now, not one of them could speak. This was a battle on the level of the heavenly body tier, and they weren't even qualified to interrupt. Jing Wuxia and the others were rueful. In the past, Ling Han was still their little junior brother, but what about now? They were still at the consummate level of the mountain river tier. There was practically no change, but Ling Han was shockingly already in the heavenly body tier. They all were human beings, so why was there such a large difference between them? The Left Minister dragged out the last syllable. It was absolutely impossible that he would pick a fight with Ling Han, but a great general had died. This was also an earth-shattering matter, and could not be overlooked simply by playing dumb. "Ling Han!" A clear shout rang out, and a valiant and formidable woman appeared. She was dressed in battle armor, and had a crimson cloak draped over her shoulders. It was about 3 meters long, as if flew in the wind behind her, showing her heroic spirit on full display. Chu Chioshua, the great commander of the Imperial Guards. When the Left Minister saw her, he immediately felt his heart settle. In terms of battle prowess, Chu Chioshua actually surpassed himself because she bore the heavy responsibility of guarding the imperial palace. Not only could she draw on even more power of the nation, she could also invoke the great formation of the imperial palace to a certain extent. What Right Minister, what 5 great generals, they were not as dependable as this woman. "Lady Chu." Ling Han greeted with clasped hands. He was still filled with considerable respect for Chu Chioshua. Chu Chioshua's face was cold as she said, "You are now already in the heavenly body tier, and are on equal level with me. I dare not accept the respectful address of lady. Let me ask you, have you come to our empire to show off your strength? Ling Han shook his head, and replied, I have no intention to bluster around. At first, I wanted to seek an audience with Her Majesty, but as the Empress has gone into isolation, I decided to stay a while here. I did not think that so many things would happen afterwards. Chu Qiushua's expression cleared slightly, and she said, You have killed a great general of our empire. There are too many implications involved in this matter, and it cannot possibly be finished like this. When Her Majesty comes out of isolation, there will definitely be a resolution. All right. Ling Han nodded. What relation did he have with the Empress? In the past, for the sake of the 9 kings, she did not hesitate to kill a great general, and now, for her beloved, what would killing another matter? Furthermore, it was Ling Han who had personally killed him. And if it came down to it, it was Zhao Jianbai who provoked him, and delivered himself straight to be killed. Zhao Luan's eyes were malicious. He knew it was no longer possible to use someone else to kill Ling Han. The left minister did not dare move at all, and Chu Qiushua was unwilling to move either. He stepped back quietly. He had long since become enemies with Ling Han, and now Ling Han would definitely call him for an accounting. If he didn't run, wouldn't that simply be waiting for death? What are you running for? However, he had just taken a step when he heard Ling Han's calm voice ring out by his ear. Next, he was gripped by an invisible hand and picked up. Ling Han. Chu Qiushua glared angrily. You have already killed a great general of the empire. Do you still intend to commit murder? As the great commander of the Imperial Guards, she could not pretend that she had not seen this. Pung! A loud sound rang out, and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden was seen to have been struck down. Meanwhile, Sha Jing was standing proudly in midair. After all, his cultivation level was much higher, and he also had the additional boost from power of the nation, so he naturally had the upper hand in this clash. Sha Jing was just about to begin shouting when he spotted Zhao Jinbai's body that had already been hacked into 2 halves, much to his shock. Fuck. He naturally would not think that this had been done by the left minister or Chu Qiushua. Putting aside the fact that neither of them had this kind of courage, they did not have the abilities to do so, either. There was only one person. Ling Han. This young man was actually powerful to this extent? Sha Jing could not see through to Ling Han's cultivation level, but he had thought that Ling Han had deliberately concealed his cultivation level all this while. They were all in the low extreme, so this was naturally easily done. But now, from the look of things, he had guessed wrongly. He could not distinguish his cultivation level, because Ling Han's cultivation level was above his own. Thus, the other had easily killed Zhao Jianbai so quickly and with so little commotion that even he had not noticed. That was because the pressure the heavenly phoenix divine maiden had exerted on him was also very heavy, so how could he possibly dare divide his attention? He trembled, and shrank back. It was one matter to fight on the battlefield. He had killed millions because he knew that his abilities had definitely reached the summit, and there was definitely no one capable of killing him, and not because he was unafraid of dying and was a born homicidal maniac. In the face of the pressure of death, he sweated madly, and his whole back was completely wet in an instant. The hatred of killing his son. He was not Zhao Jianbai. He had quite a number of sons, and Sha Yuan was only one of them. Moreover, he was not the most outstanding one either. Now that he was dead, then he was dead. Are you all right? Ling Han turned to look at the heavenly phoenix divine maiden. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden shot upwards. There were traces of blood on her body and at the corner of her lips, but her vitality had not been reduced. She looked a little aggrieved and slightly stubborn as she said, I lost. Ling Han shook his head, and replied, How could you have lost? You must have remembered wrongly. He looked at Sha Jing, stretched out his other hand. His hand covered the skies, and pressed down on Sha Jing. So what if you're in the heavenly body tier? That is how overbearing I can be. Chu Qiushua's fingers trembled slightly, and she had the urge to move. But when she saw this palm of Ling Han did not have the slightest bit of killing intent, she forcibly repressed the impulse. How could Sha Jing defend against this all on his own? The massive hand pressed down, and he was directly pressed onto the ground. Peng, 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 peng. Innumerable shock waves of origin power later, Sha Jing was immediately blasted to beyond recognition and made for a tragic sight. Ling Han withdrew his hand with a smile, and said, "Look, wife, isn't he more seriously wounded than you? It naturally is your victory. This. In broad daylight, you were practically lying through your teeth." As it happened, Ling Han was not going to give up the matter here. He turned to Sha Jing and asked, "Brother Sha, whom were you beaten by?" His eyes narrowed in a glare, the ferocity in them on full display. At this moment, his killing intent soared, and looked completely like he would be committing violence at the slightest disagreement. Sha Jing was incredibly aggrieved, his hands tightly gripped into fists. Using the quietest voice, he replied, "I was beaten by her." Chapter 1406 Screwing over the minister again. "See, wife, even he himself admits that you are the culprit." Ling Han turned to look at the heavenly phoenix divine maiden again, all his killing intent evaporating into nothing. This deliberate misrepresentation, debauchery, and purposefully distorting the truth. What justice was there left in the world? Everyone wore strange expressions. When had a great elite of the heavenly body tier fallen to this level that he did not even dare to point out the person who had injured him? Ling Han was really too overbearing. But even more women's eyes shone brightly. This was a supremely good man, so considerate and protective that even they wanted to marry him. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden involuntarily laughed, and was also a bit embarrassed. She slapped Ling Han's back lightly, but she was also filled with happiness. In the eyes of others, Ling Han was deliberately distorting the truth, overbearing and unreasonable, but in her eyes, this was the very gentlest and very most considerate action. "Brother Sha, go ahead and get treatment for your injuries." Ling Han shook his hand casually, and Sha Jing was instantly sent flying. Though he had killed Sha Yuan, he did not bear a grudge against Sha Jing. As long as he did not act forceful and imperious, he was not the type to involve others in a personal grudge either. Furthermore, Chu Choshue was already here, so no matter what, he still had to give her some face. Sha Jing did not dare utter a word, and simply turned and left. At this instant, he was no great general. He lowered his head, and even his figure seemed to be slightly smaller than usual. Zhao Luan was almost scared out of his wits. Even the great General Sha had been beaten like a dog, and he did not even dare utter a word of disagreement. Moreover, the great Commander Chu also did not say a word either, tacitly approving of Ling Han's actions. He did not want to die. He wanted to get his vengeance. Could he allow himself to die in this place? "Zhao Luan, I have never minded competition, but you have repeatedly expressed killing intent towards me, and sent people to kill me. Furthermore, on the basis that your cultivation level had been higher than mine, you had also personally moved against me as well," Ling Han said calmly. "Now, my cultivation level is higher than yours, so I shall also act the bully this once. If you can block 3 moves from me, I will spare your life." "3 moves, your sister." Zhao Luan was already cursing in his heart. Even his old man couldn't block a single strike from Ling Han, and he actually wanted him to block 3 moves. How was this any means of giving him a way out? "That's right, I have absolutely no plans of allowing you to live," Ling Han said. His hand tightened into a fist, and Zhao Luan was kneaded into pieces. The blood and flesh of the Sun Moon tier contained very strong power, but because it was confined by Ling Han's hand, not the slightest bit of a shock wave was emitted. Zhao Luan's form and spirit had been destroyed. Xiang Qingyan's face had turned white, then turned green, and then became dark as if he was a chameleon. Now, every one of them had been called to an accounting by Ling Han, so how could he possibly be spared? Most importantly, all this had been started by him in the first place. If only he had not wanted that damned private room in the first place. Who could have imagined that the death of a heavenly body tier elite would occur, and another had been forced to flee like a rat? And the starting fuse of all this was because two minor characters of the Mountain River tier had forcibly wanted to snatch a private room? It was possible that no one would believe this theory. It was too nonsensical. Lord Left Minister, save me. Save me. Xiang Qingyun no longer cared that his leg had broken, and forcibly used origin power to solidify his bones. He scrambled to the Left Minister, knelt down with a loud bang, repeatedly kowtowing. Though the Left Minister had witnessed the death of a heavenly body tier elite, he did not know what part Xiang Qingyun had played in this matter. He was baffled. In his mind, how could a mere Mountain River tier have the capability of offending a heavenly body tier elite? He waved him off and said, "Get up first, what is going on here?" This was his dog, after all. In front of outsiders, he still had the obligation to shield him a bit. How could Xiang Qingyun possibly dare to get up? He merely continued to kowtow, and begged, "Milord, save me. Milord, save me." The Left Minister laughed, and thought that Xiang Qingyun had been scared dumb by the killing of a heavenly body tier elite. He stretched out a hand and clapped Xiang Qingyun's shoulder, and said, "Don't be nervous. I am here, so there is no need for you to worry." Ling Han also smiled, and said, "The Left Minister is truly one to empathize with his subordinates." How could the Left Minister know that all this had been started by Xiang Qingyun? He did not dare believe that, either, and thought that Ling Han was really complimenting him. Involuntarily, the smile on his face grew wider. If this had been the past, and Ling Han had dared say this to him, he not only would not have been pleased, he would have flown into a rage. "Just who did you think you were? You actually dared to praise me. Did you think you were my superior?" But now, Ling Han had proved his superiority with his strength, and the Left Minister suddenly felt overwhelmed. If the same words, even if it was a compliment, were spoken from the mouths of different people, the effects were absolutely different. "Ho, I should. It is my duty." The Left Minister's smile widened, and he appeared to be very pleased. Ling Han also smiled, and then slowly said, "Brother Xiang is also astonishingly courageous. Previously, my brothers and I were dining in the restaurant, and Brother Xiang insisted that we should move so that we could allow him to have the private room. Then, afterwards, he even wanted my wife to share a drink with him." Pooh! The Left Minister immediately spluttered, even his face had turned green. "I *** your sister." He looked at Xiang Qingyun, and Xiang Qingyun shivered as if he was ill. "You are really quite bold. You demanded that a great elite of the heavenly body tier let you have his private room, and asked another great elite of the heavenly body tier to drink with you. Just who do you think you are? Fuck, I was already screwed over by Zhaoluan once just now, and now you also want to screw me over? What enmity and animosity do you have against me?" The Left Minister was furious, and suddenly started to thrash Xiang Qingyun heavily. What, empathizing with subordinates? To hell with empathizing, he was about to kill himself because of him, and there was still talk of empathizing? Why didn't no one empathize with him, then? The speed at which he suddenly turned hostile was really unexpected. Those nearby were all watching dumbfounded as the Left Minister, who was in humiliated rage, thrashed his own lackey with completely no care for his own image. It was practically enough to shatter their outlook on life. Is this really the Left Minister? "Spare me, milord. Spare me, milord." Xiang Qingyun howled terribly. He had not thought that Ling Han had not even made a move, and it would be the Left Minister who would first take his life. But the Left Minister had committed a grave error, so he naturally had to draw a clear distinguishing line between himself and Xiang Qingyun now. Otherwise, if Ling Han misunderstood that he was trying to cover up for Xiang Qingyun, it would be terrible. Xiang Qingyun's voice became softer and softer, and finally there was no longer any sign of life from him. He had been beaten to death. He had died aggrieved. His success was because of the Left Minister, and his death was also because of the Left Minister. The reason why he could be a well-regarded and grand personage was because he had gained the backing of the left minister, but it was also because he had this backing that he was absolutely unrestrained and extremely ambitious. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone so far as to trifle with Ling Han. As a result, the left minister moved personally and beat him to death. No matter how popular a lapdog was, he was still only a lapdog. When everyone looked at Ling Han, their eyes were filled with respect. This kind of elite was already superior to the right and left ministers and the 7 generals. Just look at how even the Lord Left Minister was scared to this extent. If the 9 kings did not move, who would be capable of suppressing Ling Han? Because the gap in their cultivation levels was too large, even when Ling Han had asked Lin Yu and the others to stay behind, and chatted with them for a while, all of them were incredibly reserved, and couldn't even speak clearly. Ling Han did not compel them either. After giving them some alchemical pills, he allowed them to leave. Ling Han had the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and the others first stay in an inn, whereas he himself would head to the Scarlet Heaven Academy. With Ling Han's current abilities, there was no one capable of stopping him from in this place. They weren't qualified to discover his presence, and very soon, he arrived at the library. Old Man Su was just like how he had been, seated with his eyes closed in rest. Chapter 1407 Old Man Su's Story. In the past, Ling Han could not tell what part of Old Man Su was strong, but this time, Ling Han realized that Old Man Su was definitely in the heavenly body tier. In fact, he was in the high extreme, or at the consummate level, because he could not distinguish his cultivation level at all. Yet, it seemed that the old geezer's cultivation level had been sealed, and he exuded an unusual sense of weakness. "Senior," Ling Han spoke up. "You came back." Old Man Su did not open his eyes, just as if he did not have much energy. "I have already heard. You killed Zhao Jianbai with a single strike, so your battle prowess should have advanced into the high extreme of the heavenly body tier." Ling Han smiled, and answered, "I went to the Long Light Galaxy, and stayed there for over a dozen years. Since you have also advanced into the heavenly body tier, there is no need for you to address me as senior anymore. Moreover, this old man is also not that old," Old Man Su said. He obviously said that he wasn't very old, yet still called himself an old man. Ling Han shook his head, and said, "In my heart, senior will always be senior." Old Man Su involuntarily laughed, and finally opened his eyes. He nodded, and said, "You are not bad. I did not misjudge you. Finally, I have not made a mistake in judgment." Ling Han couldn't help but ask, "Senior has misjudged others before?" "Ho ho, that is natural. I have been here for tens of thousands of years, and have guided a considerable number of juniors as well. However, all of them forgot their debt of gratitude. They achieved much in their cultivation, yet not one of them returned to visit me." Old Man Su sighed. Ling Han smiled, and said, "Senior might not have to wait any further in future." He took out the highest jade essence heart. "The highest jade essence heart." Old Man Su suddenly jumped up. It was very hard to imagine that a sickly old geezer that seemed like he would be dying any second would suddenly leap 3 feet into the air. Even Ling Han was a little stunned. Old Man Su briskly grabbed the highest jade essence heart, and at that moment, the aura he exuded was definitely saying that he would kill anyone that got in his way. "Brat, you wait here for one night. I have some words to say to you." Leaving behind these words, Old Man Su entered into the library. The strange thing was that he actually opened a secret door and entered into the basement. Ling Han did not follow him. He had already told him to wait here, after all. Though he was very curious, and though Old Man Su's cultivation level had been sealed so he was definitely no match for him, Ling Han still not move at all. How could he be rude to his benefactor? The night passed, and Old Man Su reappeared. His face wore an expression of great tiredness, but there was even more elation in his expression. He showed a kind of joy and happiness that came directly from the heart. "Come, sit." Old Man Su brought Ling Han into the library, and pulled out a chair for him. My name is... Su Ran. Old Man Su revealed his identity. Su Ran? The first prodigy to come through opening the sky 300,000 years ago? The freak that had used a mere few thousand years to reach the consummate level of the sun-moon tier? That was not right. At the time, Su Ran could have come by opening the sky, so he should have already been in the shattering void tier by then. Now, he was in the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, so his lifespan should have reached 40 million years. Going by that calculation, Su Ran should have been in the prime of his youth, and would continue to be in his prime for at least another 20 million years. Why would he now look so old, as if he was about to die at any moment? No wonder he had previously said that he was not old. He was only over 300,000 years old, and compared to Zhao Jianbai, the left minister, and the others, he was so very much younger. Ho ho, when I entered into the consummate level of the sun-moon tier, I left the joint peace planet and traveled everywhere to improve, Su Ran continued. However, at the time, I did not have a cultivation technique for the heavenly body tier, and continued to stagnate at that level. It was only after 30,000 years that I obtained a divine cultivation technique in an ancient site, and that is the universal 8 desolation technique that I taught to you. With its help, I broke through to the heavenly body tier. After that, my path was very smooth and easy, and I obtained a great many fated opportunities. I merely used over 12,000 years to reach the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. Then, I met the true love of my life. A gentleness shone in the old man's eyes as he sank into his memories. After a long while, he said, we stayed together and journeyed the world, as happy as if we were deities. However, because of my insistence, we entered into a dangerous ancient site, and the result was she fell prey to a curse, and no cure was effective. I used my own life force to extend her life for her, and looked everywhere for a way to save her. After 10,000 years, I finally found out that only the highest jade essence heart could dispel the curse on her. However, at that time, I had also weakened extremely, and could no longer extend her life for her. I have long heard that in the treasure trove of the imperial palace of the chaotic star's majestic empire, there is a treasure called the 9 Hells ice coffin. If a corpse is placed within, it would not deteriorate eternally, and if a living person was placed within, he would be able to freeze his body. No matter how heavily ill he was, his vitality could still be frozen. Thus, I returned to the joint peace planet, and planned to steal this treasure. The result was that I was apprehended by the Empress. However, when the Empress knew of my encounter, she actually lent the 9 Hells ice coffin to me. But she also locked my cultivation level, and forbade me from leaving. Hence, I could only ask for help from the people here, hoping that they would bring me the highest jade essence heart one day. He talked for a very long time, and finally stopped. Realization dawned on Ling Han. No wonder Su Ran, who should have been in his prime, had now aged prematurely, and it was also no wonder that such an elite would be detained here. That was because he couldn't possibly leave. This was indeed very much like what Empress Luan Xing would do, proud but at the same time, sympathetic. She did not kill Su Ran and his woman. Instead, she lent him the 9 Hells ice coffin, and gave Su Ran a sliver of hope. However, he had broken into her imperial palace, and he still wanted to leave as if nothing had happened? Of course she would not let that happen. Hence, the Empress detained Su Ran here. If you wanted to save your own woman, you'd have to think of some other way. Ling Han thought for a moment, and then asked, has recovered? Her vitality has been greatly damaged, but after a little more time spent on nursing, she would definitely return to her previous condition, Su Ran answered, smiling. At present, he was in a very good mood. Ling Han nodded, and said, when the Empress comes out of isolation, I will persuade her to release the seal on you. Furthermore, you would not need the 9 Hells ice coffin any further by now, so you can return it to its owner. Su Ran was naturally elated, but he immediately shook his head, and said, that Empress, Ho-Ho, is not one who would easily be persuaded. It is best that you don't go, or it would be extremely possible that you would have your cultivation level sealed like me. Who knows, you may be tossed off to become a shepherd even. Ling Han only smiled, and did not say anything more. Hee. If Su Ran saw him holding the hand of the Empress and walked towards him one day, no. If he saw his arm around her waist, would Su Ran's outlook on life completely crumble to nothing? He was very expectant. He talked with Su Ran for a while. This prodigy of the previous generation was also considerably interested in the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy. If his seal was released by that time, he would set out with Ling Han as well. Ling Han still left the imperial capital. At present, his abilities were too strong. No one would be able to rest easy if he stayed in the imperial capital. Thus, their group set out, and headed towards the Great Ling Empire. A nation could not go one day without its monarch, and he, the ruler, had finally returned. Chapter 1408 Delivering a Coffin. Ling Han had returned, and the whole nation was fired up. Because a rebellion had taken place previously, which had encountered Ling Han's bloody suppression, and only a dozen over years had passed this time, there was naturally not much change in the Great Ling Empire. Everyone was well behaved as his intimidation had not been forgotten yet. Soon after, the news about the battle in the imperial capital spread out, and the citizens of the Great Ling Empire all felt incredibly inspired. Their ruler had become a great elite of the heavenly body tier. Just think, in the past, when Ling Han had come by opening the sky, he was immediately coveted by the other nations around them as they wanted to swallow the Great Ling Empire. In the end, Ling Han had no choice but to humiliatingly travel to the Chaotic Star's majestic empire, and use himself as a hostage to guarantee the safety of the Great Ling Empire. This was a great humiliation to the whole nation. However, only a mere 20 years had passed, and Ling Han had become a proud and noble great elite from the mere hostage he had been before. This caused everyone to be elated and excited. Who was the one that said they were only lowly commoners from a small world? Who said that they were born to be a lower class? We have our ruler. Wang. Wang, the rock spirit raced over, and spun in circles around Ling Han. Furthermore, it was not just using its 2 legs to run, but had all 4 limbs on the ground. It was not any different from a dog. Little Han, why do you have a stone dog too? The old ginseng called out in curiosity. Boom! The rock spirit would only curry favor with Ling Han. How could it possibly allow the old ginseng to behave atrociously in its face? Immediately, it threw a punch over. Scared your grandpa ginseng to death. The old ginseng hurriedly broke into a run. He was an expert at running, and fighting was not his strength. Who asked you to have a bad mouth? Ling Han laughed loudly, and gave a great many unusual stones to the rock spirit. They were produced by the Black Tower, and were highly nutritious for the rock spirit. The rock golem quickly cradled the rocks, and looked left and right repeatedly, acting very cautiously as if it was afraid others would snatch them from him, causing the others to laugh involuntarily. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden, Chen Ruijing, and the others all felt very rueful. How many years has it been since they last set eyes on the lower realm? Yet now it had actually appeared in the immortal realm. After several days of national celebration, the organization of a wedding began. It was not the wedding for Ling Han and the heavenly phoenix divine maiden, but rather Ding Ping and Li Ruodong's wedding. She had left her home, and followed Ding Ping for quite some time already. She could not just continue to stay by his side like this without a clearly defined position, right? Hence, Ling Han made the decision for his disciple with a wave of his hand. The present Ling Han was not the hostage he had once been, but rather a great elite of the heavenly body tier. In the battle of the imperial capital, his name was known throughout the whole world, and when the news from the Eternity Sky majestic empire spread here, proclaiming Ling Han as an elite that had once killed a great elite in the high extreme of the heavenly body tier, his reputation was boosted to its fullest. Now, it was already publicly acknowledged that Ling Han's abilities had reached the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, and he could not be suppressed unless the few emperors moved out. Ling Han's disciple was now getting married, so who would dare not give him some face? Especially in the few nations nearby. In the past, they had sent envoys previously to force Ling Han to submit to their rule, and now, they were naturally afraid that Ling Han would call them to an accounting. All of them delivered generous gifts. For some of them, even the ruler himself arrived personally, giving Ling Han enough face. To be honest, the fact that they were allowed to attend the wedding was Ling Han giving them face. Otherwise, if a few mere sun-moon tears wanted to join in on the excitement, that would only happen in their dreams. This wedding had even alerted the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire, and they sent an envoy to deliver a wedding gift. But when it was opened, there was a very small coffin within. It was naturally impossible that this was a gift to congratulate Ling Han on being promoted and gaining wealth. Instead, this was a warning. Ling Han immediately chased off the envoy, but he did not destroy the coffin. He wanted to keep it at his side. One day, he would bury the Eternity Sky Emperor inside it. Afterwards, a period of peace came to the Great Ling Empire. Ling Han planned to use this little bit of time to greatly improve everyone's abilities. The difficulty of entering into the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy was extraordinarily high. Thus, perhaps only Ding Ping and Jiuyao had a sliver of a chance among his disciples. Chen Ruijing and the others would not need to think about it, though. His two elder brothers would probably also be unlikely to enter. It was unfortunate that there was no sign of the Rain Emperor all this while. If it was him, he definitely would be qualified to enter. Those who wanted to enter the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy had to at least have reached the pinnacle level once. Ling Han's departure this time would definitely last a great many years. Thus, he had to improve the power of the Great Ling Empire as much as possible. Every day, he would be refining alchemical pills, and improving the cultivation levels of all those around him. Kang Xiuyuan and Yun Yongwang were also helping, and with Ling Han's careful guidance, their improvement in the path of alchemy was also very fast. They were remarkable alchemists in the first place, though. It seemed like close to 100 years had passed, but for immortals, 100 years was really not that long. Ding Ping and Li Ruodong had only been married for 3 years, and they already had a daughter. She was very adorable, which caused the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden to feel very envious. Ling Han took the opportunity to do some work of his own, wanting to push down the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden. Yet the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden got cold feet each and every time, which made Ling Han feel very depressed. What was up with you only lighting the fires, but have no intention of extinguishing the fires that you lit in the first place? However, the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden was also more embarrassed with every refusal, which let Ling Han know that as long as he would put in a little bit more effort, he would eventually make this beautiful woman truly his. As a man, he should be a bit more shameless and more unembarrassed. He relaxed himself and did not deliberately pursue cultivation, yet the advancement rate of his cultivation level did not slow down in the slightest. Because he had refined the exceptional talent Black Origin Pill, though it was not as overwhelming as the Berserk Blood Spirit Pill, and did not reach the level of Saint Pill among its peers, it was still of great help in the aspect of improving one's cultivation level. Even so, Ling Han judged that he still had a few hundred years to go before he could reach the middle stage of the medium extreme. Though this was already very, very fast, Ling Han was not satisfied with this speed. Indeed, to further improve one's rate of advancing through the cultivation levels, he could only go and seek the true great herbs, ingest one of them, or eat one of the fruits, and he could attain a boost of 1 to 2 minor levels. When he reached the Star Sand Martial Arts Academy, he would once again begin to adventure into various dangerous ancient sites. Now, he had to do his duty as a ruler. Was it about time for him to pass on the throne to someone else? Ling Han began to deliberate on this question. He would enter into the celestial realm one day, and the celestial realm could not be entered by opening the sky. Thus, if it was destined that he would leave, he had to seek a person whom he could entrust the Great Ling Empire to as soon as possible. If he was a bit lazier, he could directly merge the Great Ling Empire with the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire, but the Empress would definitely enter the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire with him, so he would still have to find an heir. Chu Choshue is not bad. Ling Han thought for half a day. I had best wait until my Empress comes out of isolation, and then discuss it with her further. In the blink of an eye, 20 years had passed. To the majority, there would not be the slightest change in these 20 years. No additional strand of gray hair would grow on their heads, but such a long period of time was enough to expedite the birth of another generation. Ding Ping and Li Ruodong's daughter, Ding Zhizhi, had already grown from the little infant of the past into a slender and elegant young woman, and what made Ling Han feel gratified was that even with the bad influence from the old ginseng, rabbit, and even Jiang Qiaoling, Ding Zhizhi had not been led astray. She was educated and well-balanced, and incredibly gentle and refined. A considerable number of the younger generation of the lower realm in the past had also become parents. Ling Han's cousin, Yu Kaiyu, also had his own children as well. Furthermore, he had wedded 3 beautiful wives in a single go, and they had simultaneously birthed 3 healthy boys, which caused both him and Yuzhen Shan to feel madly overjoyed. Jiuyao had finally advanced into the Sun-Moon tier, his abilities growing increasingly frightening. Furthermore, he would only obey Ling Han alone, and the killing intent exuded from him would soar sky-high. No one else dared to come too close to him. He had no plans to get married all this time, which caused Ling Han to feel extremely worried. And in this kind of peaceful time, a huge event suddenly happened. The 2 majestic empires of Eternity Sky and Jade Drop sent out their troops respectively, and started a grand-scale invasion of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. Chapter 1409 Large-Scale Invasion. The 3 majestic empires had many bordering territories, and thus battles and skirmishes along these shared borders were common and frequent. In fact, skirmishes would break out yearly, even monthly. However, most of these skirmishes were only small-scale conflicts, where only cultivators below the immortal level participated. However, this time was different. Completely different. Both majestic empires were led by a heavenly body tier great elite as they charged into the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. In just 3 days, they had already seized a large chunk of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire's land. However, their assault wasn't over yet, and they continued to march toward the imperial capital. By the looks of it, the 2 majestic empires were determined to take the Chaotic Star's majestic empire down in one breath. That way, the joint peace planet would return to its previous state of 2 dominant majestic empires again. Indeed, this was a very good opportunity. Empress Luanxing and the 9 kings were all cultivating in seclusion at this moment, and the only remaining elites of the majestic empire were the 2 ministers, the 7 generals, and Chu Chushue. In fact, there were only 6 generals now. In any case, the fact that the 2 majestic empires had only launched an assault now also showed that they were apprehensive of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. Were Empress Luanxing and the 9 kings truly cultivating in seclusion? 30 years had passed, and they were finally unable to contain themselves any longer. They resolutely decided to launch an all-out assault. As long as they conquered the entire Chaotic Star's majestic empire, Empress Luanxing wouldn't be able to draw on the power of the nation even if she exited seclusion. Meanwhile, it would be a completely different story for the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor. As their territory grew, they would eventually go from intruders to owners. Ling Han immediately ordered everyone to prepare in the hopes of challenging their enemies. However, only 3 days had passed when he received the newest battle report. The 2 majestic empires had increased the scale of their assault. Instead of 1 heavenly body tier elite leading 1 army, there were now 10 heavenly body tier elites leading 10 armies. Moreover, it was rumored that the 2 emperors were personally leading their troops now. Upon receiving this news, Ling Han immediately dispelled any thoughts of leading an army to meet these enemies. Instead, he decided to act alone. After all, the military might of the Great Ling Empire was utterly insignificant compared to the military might of the 2 majestic empires. Once these 2 juggernauts revealed their true strength, they would possess a crushing advantage over any army that the Great Ling Empire could muster. If the enemy only consisted of 1 army, Ling Han could have defeated them simply by slaying their heavenly body tier general. The remaining enemies would all be insignificant pawns. She could easily defeat them by unleashing heaven's might. Now, however, the two emperors were personally leading their troops. Although Ling Han had belief in himself, his current battle prowess was only capable of suppressing those at the early stage of the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. However, the two emperors were not only at the peak stage of the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, but they were even 4-star geniuses. Wherever their army reached was wherever their territory would expand to. Coupled with the power of the nation, how could Ling Han hope to challenge them? Thus, Ling Han's aim was no longer to defeat and expel the invaders. Instead, his aim was merely to protect Empress Luan Xinghe would bring her into the Black Tower and take her away. Once she completed her breakthrough, she would possess battle prowess at the pinnacle level. At that time, she would be the most powerful person on Joint Peace Planet, and perhaps in the entire galaxy. Even if the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor teamed up, their only fate would be defeat at the hands of the Empress. Now, however, Ling Han could only escape from their might. Ling Han had a discussion with the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and the others, eventually deciding that they should remain to guard the Great Ling Empire. His aim was to sneak someone out, so there was no need for an entire troop of them to head over. In any case, the others wouldn't be able to help him anyway. Although the Heavenly Phoenix Divine Maiden and the others were reluctant, they had no choice but to nod in agreement. Even if they went, they could only sit inside the Black Tower as spectators. There was no time to dawdle, and Ling Han immediately set off. His speed was godly, and it wasn't long before he entered the territory of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. As he ventured deeper and deeper into the majestic empire, he also received more and more information on the current situation of the war. The two invading majestic empires were advancing at an astonishing speed, seizing almost half of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire in just a few days' time. Meanwhile, the left and right ministers along with the 6 generals responded by pulling back troops and retreating to the imperial capital. This was a wise decision. After all, which of them could challenge the two emperors, even if they fought with no regard for their life? However, it was also because of this decision that the territory of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire shrunk even more rapidly. Right now, all of the troops were defending the imperial capital. There was also a large formation protecting the imperial capital, and this large formation was controlled by the 9 heavenly body tier elites. This formation was so powerful that perhaps even the two emperors couldn't breach its defenses. Several days passed, and Ling Han finally arrived before the imperial capital. "Please open the formation and let me in," Ling Han shouted toward the top of the city wall. Ling Han was undoubtedly a bringer of misfortune. How many heavenly body tier elites had Joint Peace Planet possessed? Yet, 20 years ago, he had killed several of them as if he were merely chopping up vegetables. As such, it was only natural that he was renowned as a ruthless elite. Thus, the guards on the city wall quickly reported his arrival. It wasn't long before 4 heavenly body tier elites appeared atop the city wall. Chu Qiushue, the left and right ministers, and Sha Jing. The enemy troops might be upon us at any moment, so what if this person is a spy for the enemy empires? Sha Jing asked. If we open the formation, and this person attacks us from inside, what will we do then? Fucking hell, how can I possibly be a spy? The Empress is my wife. Ling Han exclaimed in his mind. However, his relationship with Empress Luan Xing was a private affair between the two of them. This was something that no one else was aware of. After all, their relationship also involved the secret of the 9 snake tribe. However, Sha Jing's words weren't complete slander either. What if Ling Han really was a spy? If they took one wrong step at this critical moment, it was very likely that they would suffer a resounding defeat. Right now, their only chance of turning the tables was if Empress Luan Xing successfully advanced to the pinnacle level and exited seclusion. If she did so, she would definitely be more powerful than before. Moreover, she had already been capable of battling against the two emperors before, so she would definitely possess a crushing advantage if she were to successfully advance to the pinnacle level. This was the sliver of hope that everyone held, and the reason that they were determined to defend the imperial capital at all costs. They definitely couldn't make any blunder, no matter how small or insignificant it seemed. Right now, even Chu Choshue was wearing a solemn expression. After all, Ling Han was only the ruler of a vassal state. Could she truly guarantee his loyalty? Moreover, Ling Han was far too powerful. If he were insistent on causing trouble, who could stop him? Ling Han, are you here to provide help? She asked. Correct. Ling Han replied with a nod. With us elites standing guard, we can guarantee that the imperial capital won't fall, Chu Choshue said. You can scout the surroundings and bring us some intelligence. When Her Majesty exits seclusion, you'll naturally be rewarded for your work. Ling Han couldn't help but chuckle bitterly. He was being doubted even though he was coming to help his own wife. What in the world? However, regardless of how he tried to explain himself, Chu Choshue and the others remained steadfast in refusing his entry into the imperial capital. Right now, stability was their key strategy. They definitely couldn't afford any slip-ups. While trying to convince them, Ling Han had even considered barging his way into the imperial capital. However, whether or not he could breach the formation was a problem. Moreover, what if the two majestic empires coincidentally arrived just as he breached the formation? At that time, he would have genuinely become a spy for the enemy empires. Anyhow, since these elites were so confident that the formation could hold back the two emperors, Ling Han could only choose to believe them. He sat down on some mountain in the distance, ready to act once the armies of the two majestic empire arrived below the city walls or even breached them. That was about his wife, so he would rescue her no matter what. The days crept by, and after just half a month, a sea of banners and flags appeared on the horizon, mighty and overbearing. The two majestic empires had already seized all of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire's territory, bar the imperial capital. Their troops were now at the foot of the imperial capital's walls, the might that they exuded formidable and exuberant. Meanwhile, the totem above the imperial capital had already become as dim as could be. An empire's territory, population, and overall strength were all factors in determining the power of the nation. Those who submit will live, and those who resist shall perish, the Eternity Sky Emperor announced. He was dressed in a suit of golden armor, and his severed arm had already regrown. He was radiating with might, and he continued, "Make haste and open the city gates. Otherwise, you shall all perish with this city." Chapter 14:10 Defenses breached. At this moment, the Jade Drop Emperor also walked out from the army, his formidable might so powerful that it could subdue his enemies. Even though they were protected by a large formation, the people in the imperial capital were still terrified by his appearance. In fact, even the heavenly body tier elites couldn't help but start to tremble. These weren't two ordinary heavenly body tier elites. Rather, they were two paramount rulers whose utterances were law and whose might was boundless. "Make haste and open the city gates," the Jade Drop Emperor commanded menacingly. His voice boomed through the city like thunder. The 9 heavenly body tier elites atop the city wall remained silent and still. "You refuse?" The Eternity Sky Emperor sneered before waving his hand, and roaring, "Attack!" Meanwhile, the Jade Drop Emperor also issued an identical command. A row of catapults was instantly rolled out, each measuring at least 300 meters in height and length. These were gigantic catapults, so large that they would instill terror in their enemies' minds. These weren't ordinary catapults, but catapults that had been engraved with formations. Thus, they possessed an unbelievable destructive ability. However, these catapults were far too large, meaning that they were incredibly difficult to store inside spatial spirit tools. Moreover, they were also incredibly heavy. Thus, they had to be personally crewed by Sun-Moon tier cultivators. Otherwise, no one else would be able to withstand their devastating weight. The 10 catapults were spread in a line as they were loaded with special projectiles that were forged from godly metal. These projectiles were spherical and measured almost 30 meters in radius. Their bodies were more so filled with spikes. If a Sun-Moon tier cultivator were unfortunate enough to be struck by such a projectile, they would definitely be killed immediately. However, the accuracy of these catapults was far too low, and the time needed to load them was also astonishingly long. As such, it was completely unrealistic to use them to attack people. If someone were struck by its projectiles, that would simply be due to horribly bad luck. These catapults were only useful when laying siege to a city. After all, a city would provide a massive target that these catapults most certainly couldn't miss. Moreover, it wasn't as if a city could grow legs and run away. That being the case, any city would become an easy target for these catapults. Boom! 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 The catapults launched their first volley of attacks. Since these were siege weapons, they could naturally cause huge amounts of damage to the large-scale formations that surrounded cities. A projectile landed on the barrier formed by the formation, instantly causing it to shudder. The elites in the imperial capital hurriedly channeled their origin power into the formation, providing it with power to stabilize. Because they had pulled their troops back, the Sun-Moon tier cultivators in the nearby cities had almost all come to the imperial capital. Thus, the imperial capital was brimming with powerful cultivators at this moment, with tens of thousands of Sun-Moon tier cultivators. As such, it was naturally an easy task to maintain the circulation of the city protection formation. Each battalion consisted of 1,000 people, and these battalions would take turns in providing power for the city protection formation. It would almost be impossible for the formation to run out of power. Of course, this was if the situation remained unchanging. However, this was only the beginning. The catapults continued to launch volley after volley of attacks, and a wave of enemy soldiers also started to charge at the imperial capital. Once the city protection formation was stretched beyond its limits, it would naturally crumble and disappear. The enemy strategy was to breach the formation through the use of brute strength. It didn't matter that they had no understanding of the formation. As long as they were powerful enough, what would it matter how mighty the formation was? They would simply destroy it with brute strength. The people in the imperial capital naturally wouldn't sit by idly and watch the enemies attack. They immediately retrieved the city defense weapons, firing at their enemies with powerful bows and crossbows. Large swathes of enemies were instantly wounded and killed. Guarding a city was easy, and attacking a city was hard. This was common sense. However, because cultivators were far too powerful, it was possible that the existence of a paramount being would mean that a city could be defeated with a wave of their hand. In any case, this was a war of attrition, where the Chaotic Star's majestic empire was doing everything it could to defend, while the two other majestic empires were doing everything they could to attack. The number of elites possessed by the two majestic empires was astounding. So many elites, Ling Han remarked as he swept his gaze over the battlefield. Although he was sitting far away, he could still see a large number of elites in the distance. Apart from the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor, there were still 3 other elites at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. As they blinked, it was as if the sun were rising from the horizon. This was a dazzling sight. Can they defend the imperial capital? How long can they defend? Ling Han murmured. The two majestic empires had deployed all of their troops for this assault, and it was most likely that they were certain of their victory. To think that this one city could stop them in their tracks would be to underestimate their power. The most important question was, how long would they need to breach this city? If they were unable to seize the imperial capital before Empress Luanxing exited seclusion, they would definitely lose this war. On the other hand, if they seized the imperial capital before Empress Luanxing exited seclusion, the Chaotic Star's majestic empire would cease to exist. However, who could say when Empress Luanxing would exit seclusion? If they had a definitive date, they would at least have a goal to work toward. Right now, however, it was as if they were fighting a battle that didn't have an end in sight. Such battles could easily drain one of their will and confidence. After all, they were facing off against the elites of two majestic empires. Boom! Deafening rumbles continued to sound throughout the city as the catapults relentlessly fired volley after volley of projectiles. Meanwhile, the two majestic empires were uncaring about their casualties as they attacked day and night, pouring huge numbers of soldiers into attacking the city. They showed great determination and will to seize this city. On the third day, even heavenly body tier elites started to participate in the assaults. They stood proudly in the air, extracting the power of heavenly bodies as they unleashed a barrage of powerful attacks. This was utterly terrifying. During battles, who dared to spend several seconds preparing a powerful attack? To say nothing of several seconds, one might be killed even if they hesitated for a split second. Right now, however, no one could stop these heavenly body tier elites from wantonly preparing their attacks. Boom! 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 Heavenly body tier elites could resonate with heavenly bodies and thus extract boundless power from them. Countless flaming meteors materialized in the air, hurtling toward the city like a rain of fire. These meteors should have blotted out the sun and created darkness, yet because they were flaming, they instead caused the surroundings to radiate with dazzling light. The citizens of Point Star City were all numb with fear. Those who were more easily frightened had already collapsed to the ground in fright, unable to pick themselves back up. In fact, even Chu Choshua and the other heavenly body tier elites wore grave expressions, cold sweat dripping down their backs. Could the city protection formation truly block these attacks? The meteors crashed down, and the formation shuddered precariously. A violent ripple traveled over the formation as if it were made out of water. Move aside. The 9 heavenly body tier elites hurriedly ejected the cultivators who were currently controlling the formation, sending them flying into the surroundings. They then personally took control of the formation, providing it with endless power and finally returning it to stability. However, this still wasn't enough. The 2 majestic empires had close to 100 heavenly body tier elites, while they were only a team of 9 heavenly body tier elites. Their enemies could rotate shifts and rest, while they had to maintain the city protection form as long as the battle lasted. This could be 1 year, 5 years, or 10 years. There would eventually come a day when they ran out of power. We have to take shifts. The 9 heavenly body tier elites controlled the formation in shifts, with each person controlling it for 1 day at a time. Along with some sun-moon tier cultivators to support them, they could just barely manage to keep the formation running. The situation was finally stabilized. Ling Han's worries were also slightly eased, and he sat back down on the mountain in the distance. However, after just 5 days, the situation took a dramatic turn for the worse. The formation surrounding Point Star City suddenly disappeared. It hadn't been blasted apart, but had instead disappeared by itself. It was as if someone in the city had purposefully shut down the formation. What in the world was going on? Was someone seeking death? What's going on? Why was the formation suddenly shut down? Heavens! What are we going to do now? Chaos ripped through the city following the sudden shutdown of the city protection formation. Without the city protection formation, how were they going to defend against the assault of the 2 majestic empires? We're done for. We're done for. The Eternity Sky Emperor laughed heartily, and commanded, "Haha, all troops, attack. Seize this city." He drew his sword and pointed at the city before him. Ling Han's brows creased into a deep frown. It completely baffled him as to why the city protection formation had suddenly shut down. However, there was no hesitation in his movements as he immediately leaped up and charged toward Point Star City. Chapter 14:11 Charging through the Encirclemen. Ling Han charged toward Point Star City. If anyone tried to stop him from rescuing his wife, they could go and die. 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 Killing intent emanated from his body, and it was as if he were a demonic god. Moreover, because he was charging toward the city from the outside, many people from the 2 majestic empires initially thought that he was an ally. However, they quickly realized that they were wrong. Ling Han looked far too unfamiliar. Those above the immortal level all had incredible memory, and the Jade Drop Majestic Empire and Eternity Sky Majestic Empire only had several tens of thousands of Sun-Moon tier cultivators anyway. None of them matched Ling Han in appearance. In any case, no one dared to guess that Ling Han was actually a heavenly body tier elite, even though his speed was astounding. Who are you? There was a cold humph as someone appeared before Ling Han. Ling Han had no time for this nonsense. He was focused on reaching Point Star City as soon as possible, and he didn't want to waste any time. Thus, even though he was brimming with killing intent, he didn't lash out at anyone along the way. However, now that his path was being obstructed, he naturally wouldn't hold back any longer. Pa! He casually waved his hand, and the person before him was instantly crushed into smithereens. Ling Han dashed through the cloud of blood, barely stopping for even a split second. However, his action naturally drew the attention of the others, meaning that he was unable to remain low-key any further. There's a spy. Capture him. Kill him. A dozen or so cultivators instantly charged over, all of them at the Sun-Moon tier. The heavenly body tier elites were observing the battle from in the sky, and it was naturally impossible for some random enemy to spur them into action. Ling Han couldn't be bothered attacking these cultivators. Anyhow, his physique was as tough as level 12 godly metal, so what would it matter even if he were struck by the attacks of 100 million Sun-Moon tier cultivators? He simply unleashed his heavenly body tier aura as he descended to the ground and continued to charge toward Point Star City. If he traveled through the sky, he would be targeted and attacked by the enemy heavenly body tier elites. As such, it was naturally safer for him to travel along the ground. One had to realize that the Jade Drop Majestic Empire wasn't the Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire, a young empire that had only been founded 1 million years ago. With its rich history, this empire also had an evident pyramid structure of elites. Among its heavenly body tier elites, there were those at the low extreme, medium extreme, high extreme, and also consummate level. If Ling Han were targeted by an elite at the high extreme of the heavenly body tier, even if he weren't stopped in his tracks, his speed would be affected drastically. Peng, 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 peng. Ling Han was like a raging arrow as he shot through the crowds of enemies. Moreover, his formidable aura caused all of the charging Sun-Moon tier cultivators to shudder. These cultivators were then tossed into the air, where they would instantly explode into a cloud of blood and flesh. Once on the battlefield, Ling Han would become steel-hearted and ruthless. *T. He's not a Sun-Moon tier cultivator, he's a heavenly body tier elite, someone exclaimed in astonishment. Hurry, report this to the great elites. Cries of astonishment rippled through the enemy ranks, and it wasn't long before the heavenly body tier elites in the sky also noticed the abnormal commotion below. They all focused their gaze on Ling Han. How audacious! You actually dared to lay in ambush behind us and kill warriors of my majestic empire. You're seeking death. A heavenly body tier elite launched an attack from a dozen kilometers away, drawing on the power of heavenly bodies as they did so. Whoosh! A large origin power hand materialized before Ling Han. Ling Han didn't dodge or evade. In fact, he didn't even slow down, charging toward the large hand just like that. Peng! He forcefully barged through the large hand, continuing to charge toward the city. Meanwhile, the heavenly body tier elite in the sky let out a muffled groan as a gaping hole was ripped into the large hand. Looking down, a bloody hole had appeared in his right hand. Although it was an origin power hand that Ling Han had barged through, the fact that it was linked to the aura of the elite meant that the latter had also received a minor wound. The elite was stunned. This was because he knew that Ling Han hadn't attacked him at all. Instead, he had merely crashed into his origin power hand. However, the destructive power of this collision had ripped through his origin power hand and even wounded his actual body. What kind of physique was this? What kind of destructive power was this? This person was the definition of a human weapon. Stop him at all costs, a heavenly body tier elite ordered coldly. The soldiers on the ground instantly moved into formations. They were going to combine everyone's strength to block Ling Han. Peng! Ling Han crashed into the formations, and the enemy soldiers were instantly sent flying like falling leaves on a blustery autumn day. They were completely unable to stop his advance. In fact, some soldiers were blasted into pieces by the overwhelming force of the collision. Regardless of whether they were at the Mountain River tier or Sun Moon tier, none of these soldiers had the right or ability to stop Ling Han. Upon seeing this, even the heavenly body tier elites were astounded. Inconceivable. When Sun Moon tier cultivators entered a formation, they could not only unleash more power, but they could even distribute the damage that they received. As such, these formations gave Sun Moon tier cultivators the right to challenge heavenly body tier elites. Of course, such formations could only be used on battlefields during war. Otherwise, there definitely wouldn't be enough Sun Moon tier cultivators. That being the case, it would be useless even if they teamed up and entered a formation. However, Ling Han had destroyed these formations simply by charging through them like a wild ox. He didn't play by the rules, nor did he know the rules. He was simply charging through these formations using brute strength, taking full advantage of his superior power and physique. Humph. Another heavenly body tier elite launched an attack, unleashing a ray of sword light at Ling Han. This ray of sword light rapidly caught up to Ling Han, slashing at his back. Ling Han frowned upon sensing this attack. This was an elite at the high extreme of the heavenly body tier, and they were just powerful enough to wound him. I can't stop. Ling Han immediately reached a decision, and he continued to streak along the ground. The city protection formation had suddenly shut down, so a dramatic turn of events had most definitely taken place inside Point Star City. He had to hurry over as quickly as possible. Pooh! The sword light slashed into Ling Han's back, shredding his clothes and sending them fluttering through the air like colorful butterflies. A bloody mark also appeared on his jade-like back, with blood immediately seeping out from within it. However, the heavenly body tier elites of the Jade Drop Majestic Empire weren't delighted upon seeing this. Instead, they were utterly stunned. Holy fuck! What kind of physique is this? It's far too freakish. One had to realize that Ling Han had been attacked by an elite at the peak stage of the high extreme of the heavenly body tier. Moreover, this elite was a 4-star genius. As such, the might of his sword slash was already nearing the peak stage of the consummate level. That being the case, who dared to face his attacks head-on? Ling Han's speed hadn't decreased, so it was clear that he had focused all of his energy on charging forward. As such, his defenses had naturally been at their weakest. Most importantly, he was only at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier, so what would it matter even if he had defended with all his strength? However, this still wasn't the most astonishing thing. It wasn't long before the heavenly body tier elites sucked in another cold breath. As they watched on, they saw the wound on Ling Han's back healing at a rate that was visible to the naked eye. Before long, not even a scar was remaining. If it weren't for the streaks of blood on his back, who would believe that Ling Han had been cut by a sword just then? Xiao! Ling Han dashed into Point Star City at an incredible speed. In fact, the distance between the mountain and Point Star City hadn't been great, so how long would he heavenly body tier elite have needed to cover it? The great elites of the Jade Drop Majestic Empire all chuckled coldly. Wasn't entering Point Star City right now akin to running into a trap? So be it. They would destroy him along with this city. Ling Han immediately unleashed his divine sense upon entering the city, discovering that there were 8 powerful auras currently converged together. He immediately sprung into action, reaching that location in just a few strides. Chu Choshua, the left and right ministers, and the others appeared before him. What happened? Why did the city protection formation suddenly shut down? Ling Han roared. Wary looks instantly appeared on the faces of Chu Choshua and the others. Right now, any outsider was a potential enemy. Ling Han swept his gaze over them. There were several great generals who he had ever seen before, yet he immediately frowned after looking over all of them. Where's Ding Lian? He asked. There were only 8 heavenly body tier elites present. The left minister wore a dark expression, and he replied, today was Ding Lian's turn to take control of the city protection formation. So it was him who purposefully shut down the formation to allow enemies in? Ling Han immediately connected the dots. His heart jolted, and he hurriedly turned to Chu Qiushue, asking, "Where is Her Majesty? Hurry up and take me to her." Chapter 14:12 Traitor. There was almost no doubt about the culprit. The formation hadn't failed earlier, nor had it failed later. It had failed just when it was Ding Lian's turn to take control of it. With a heavenly body tier elite standing guard, who could hope to damage the city protection formation? Thus, it was abundantly clear that it was Ding Lian who had betrayed them and damaged the city protection formation. He had opened the city gates to invite their enemies in. However, why had he done this? So be it if it were someone else. However, Ding Lian was mesmerized by the Empress so much that he still hadn't started a family yet, so how could he betray her? It was because of this that the 8 heavenly body tier elites refused to believe that Ding Lian was the traitor, even though every piece of evidence pointed toward it. Chu Qiushue's expression became cold, and she asked, "What are you trying to do?" The location where the Empress was cultivating in seclusion was a secret among secrets. Utter nonsense. Ling Han chided. Since Ding Lian isn't here, he's definitely gone to look for Her Majesty. Impossible. General Ding definitely doesn't know where Her Majesty is cultivating. Chu Qiushue said resolutely. Stupid woman, there are no genuine secrets in this world. Ling Han exclaimed angrily. Moreover, Ding Lian is a heavenly body tier elite who's lived in the imperial capital for millions of years. How do you know he doesn't have spies in the palace? Chu Qiushue shuddered upon hearing this. However, she was still suspicious of Ling Han's words. Compared to Ling Han, she was more willing to believe in someone with whom she had worked for millions of years. Meanwhile, Ling Han had ascended to this realm after opening the sky and had only been here for less than 20 years. How could she trust him? Ling Han started to become impatient. Did they still have time to dilly-dally? He immediately reached over to grab Chu Qiushue. "Stop!" the left minister and the others shouted. They all stepped forward to obstruct Ling Han. Ling Han humphed as he unleashed heaven's might. Pa, 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 pa. The left minister and the other heavenly body elites all crumpled to the ground. This was the domineering power of heaven's might. Your cultivation level is lower than mine, so you don't even possess the right to resist my power. Only now did the left minister and the others understand just how powerful Ling Han was. Although he had killed Zhao Jianbai with a single slash before, that still hadn't been his true strength. This man was a freak who was far more powerful than they could imagine. If my wife loses even a strand of her hair, I'll shatter every single bone of yours. Ling Han said menacingly as he dragged Chu Qiushue to her feet. What? Even at a time like this, everyone was still shocked by his words. What was this man saying? His wife? Gasp. No one here was an idiot. Ling Han had been incredibly worried about Empress Luan Xing just then, and he was even referring to her as his wife now. Everything had become clear now. However, was this a case of unrequited love? Everyone was feeling a little confused and dizzy. Although their empress was breathtakingly beautiful, she had never been involved in any kind of relationship before. Thus, they were all unable to accept this. Oi! Ling Han grabbed Chu Qiushue by the collar and gave her a good smack, not having the slightest intention of treating her tenderly. Chu Qiushue was both angry and embarrassed. However, the city protection formation had been shut, and the power of the nation had also waned into insignificance. So, how could she resist Ling Han's power? She pondered for a moment before finally coming to a decision. I'll lead you there, she said. Point the way. Ling Han said, not letting go of her. He felt that she would be too slow. Chu Qiushue could only point the way for Ling Han as he continued to drag her along. It wasn't long before they entered the palace, and after making countless turns, they finally arrived in a garden that rested next to a small mountain. An air of primal chaos suffused this land, and it was much like a stretch of celestial land. The left minister and the others naturally tagged along as well. As they glanced around the garden, they instantly flared up in rage, shouting, "Ding Lian, what in the world are you doing?" There had originally been a hidden room in the mountain, yet the camouflage to this hidden room had already been destroyed, revealing the stone door that sat behind it. Right now, Ding Lian was standing before this door and attempting to open it. At this moment, Chu Qiushue and the others had no choice but to accept that Ding Lian was the traitor. "It was actually you. Why? Ungrateful wretch. When has Her Majesty treated you unfairly? When has the Chaotic Star's majestic empire treated you unfairly?" Ding Lian stopped what he was doing before turning around and gazing at the people behind him. Summer insects can't speak of ice. How could these bloodthirsty and power-hungry people understand his grand ambitions? Ling Han casually tossed Chu Qiushue aside. Killing intent oozed from his body, and he said, "Who would have thought? The person who tried to kill me in the galaxy was actually you." Now that he could sense Ding Lian's aura, he could naturally tell that this was the person who had ambushed him and tried to kill him before. Although Ling Han had indeed seen Ding Lian once before, they had been too far apart at that time. Moreover, his cultivation had also been far too weak. As such, there was no way he could have challenged Ding Lian. Ding Lian glanced at Ling Han, and flames immediately burst from his eyes. This definitely wasn't because Ling Han was powerful. Rather, these were flames of jealousy that were fueled by rivalry and love. Ling Han was astonished. At the same time, he also came to a realization. "You hunted me down and tried to kill me because of my relationship with Her Majesty. However, how did you know about our relationship back then? Heh, you think I've wasted my time all these years?" Ding Lian said in scorn. There was a hint of dejection and loneliness in his voice. His body shuddered, and his aura suddenly burst into the surroundings unrestrainedly. What? Chu Qiushue and the others all went numb with shock. This aura was far too powerful, it was far above what they could imagine. Medium extreme? It has to be. They all exclaimed in shock and envy. 1,000,000 years had passed, and Ding Lian had finally taken this step first. Meanwhile, Ling Han shook his head, and said, "I've underestimated you. You actually reached the high extreme." Ding Lian's aura was significantly more powerful than his own. Chu Qiushue and the others almost fainted in shock. This reserved and lovesick person had not only surpassed them, but he had actually surpassed them by this much? Otherwise, how could I have snuck into the palace and learned so many secrets? Ding Lian said proudly. "Now, you can all fuck off." Chu Qiushue's face went as white as a sheet. Ding Lian had actually snuck into the palace before? Moreover, it was clear that he had snuck in more than once, yet she had been completely oblivious to this. As the leader of the Imperial Guards, she had completely and utterly failed in her duties. "Ding Lian, you're inviting disaster." "Why?" the left minister shouted. Ding Lian turned his back to them and continued to undo the restrictions on the stone door. "I obviously borrowed the power of the two majestic empires to obliterate the power of the nation," he replied calmly. "Otherwise, with the power of the nation guarding this place, how could I damage the restrictions on this stone door?" A gentle yet crazed smile stretched across his face, and he said, "From now on, no one can stop me from being with Her Majesty." It was evident that he wanted to open this stone door and then subdue Empress Luanxing. He would then leave this place and live together with her forever after. The rumors weren't false. This person was indeed a lovesick man. However, it was clear that he didn't want to give his silent blessings to another man. Thus, he had chosen to take this huge gamble while the Empress was cultivating in seclusion. "Are you also responsible for the invasion by the two majestic empires?" Ling Han asked. "Of course. If I hadn't informed them, how would they have known whether Her Majesty was genuinely cultivating in seclusion or not?" Ding Lian replied calmly. Even so, the two majestic empires still hadn't believed him readily. Instead, they had sent a heavenly body tier elite to test the waters before launching an all-out assault. Ling Han nodded, and said, "Since that's the case, you can go and die now." Chapter 14:13 Killing Without Amnesty. Ling Han didn't plan to ask any more questions. However, perhaps Ding Lian even knew about the secret of the 9 kings, and that they were the clones of Empress Luan Xing. Otherwise, how would he dare to take this gamble by himself? If just one of the 9 kings was still awake, they would be able to respond and unleash power at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. An elite at the high extreme of the heavenly body tier would be insta-killed by such overwhelming power. It was best that the secret of the 9 snake tribe remained a secret forever. Ling Han, it was a grave error not to kill you at that time. Ding Lian raised his right hand, which immediately turned as white as jade. In fact, even his skin became transparent, revealing the bones and pulsing veins inside his hand. "White jade, murderous heaven palm," the right minister exclaimed in a trembling voice. Gasp. The color drained from Chu Chioshua and the others' faces. This was a tremendously powerful secret technique, yet it wasn't much of a secret. Anyone who reached the heavenly body tier could learn this secret technique from the treasure storage of the imperial family. However, in all these years, no one had ever mastered this secret technique before. It was far too difficult. However, Ding Lian shocked everyone once again. He was definitely a supreme genius. After all, he had advanced from the low extreme of the heavenly body tier to the high extreme of the heavenly body tier in just 1,000,000 years. Thus, was it truly surprising that he could also master the white jade murderous heaven palm? Murderous aura exploded into the surroundings as his palm lashed outward, desiring to annihilate all matter. To say nothing of elites at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier, even those at the high extreme of the heavenly body tier would be killed by the murderous aura if they didn't defend against it with their full power. The killing intent in Ling Han's eyes became more and more intense. Holy motherfucker, this bastard actually dared to target my wife? He's seeking death. It was an individual's freedom to fantasize about such things in their mind. He couldn't control one's thoughts and imagination. However, Ding Lian actually dared to transform his fantasies into action? Ling Han had no reason to show him any kindness or mercy. Die! Ling Han charged forward, not attempting to dodge Ding Lian's attack. "You're seeking death," Ding Lian said coldly. He had already restrained himself for so many years, and he could finally rip off his disguise now. This sent a feeling of euphoria through him. Ling Han retrieved his wooden sword. It seemed as if this sword would undergo peculiar transformations if it drank the blood of powerful elites. However, under normal circumstances, he obviously couldn't use this sword to wantonly kill people. Ling Han activated Tide of the Ages as he slashed down with the wooden sword. The murderous aura instantly aged, losing all of its menacing might. What? Ding Lian was stunned by what he saw. That was the white jade murderous heaven palm. It was a secret technique that he had spent 300,000 years to master. He had been confident that he could kill anyone weaker than himself with this palm in one strike, no less. He couldn't fathom any other outcome. Yet, he had actually failed to kill an elite at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier? No. Not only had he failed to kill him, but he had even failed to slow him down. His opponent's wooden sword was already slashing toward him. Humph! A long staff materialized in the air. It was Ding Lian's favorite weapon. This staff had followed him for countless years, and they were already able to read each other's minds. The staff instantly parried the wooden sword. Ding! The sword landed, and the staff was instantly snapped into two. The sword didn't stop, and it continued to slash toward Ding Lian. Pooh! Ding Lian immediately vomited a mouthful of blood. His staff was linked to his mind, and his staff being snapped was equivalent to him being struck by the sword. His aura wilted drastically. However, the sword had already landed. He wanted to retreat, yet the stone door was directly behind him. How could he retreat? Moreover, Ling Han was attacking him in rage, so how could he hope to evade his attack? Pooh! Ding Lian was instantly sliced into two. The wooden sword was bathed in blood, and the divine patterns upon it became even clearer. They slithered around the sword like snakes, exuding an extremely sinister aura as they did so. This was a treasure of the netherworld. Ling Han finally came to a realization. No wonder this sword was so sinister. Moreover, it even gave him a slight urge to go crazy and go on a wanton killing spree. He humphed in his mind. Could he not defeat this mere sword? Chu Choshua and the others were numb with shock. They had already been rendered completely speechless. In the past, Ling Han had killed Zhao Jianbai with a single slash. However, they had both been at the low extreme at that time. Now, however, he had killed Ding Lian an elite at the high extreme with a single slash as well. Just how powerful was Ling Han? Ling Han walked to the stone door and also started to undo the restrictions. However, it was also at this moment that he could see the loyalty of the others. The left and right ministers as well as the generals remained silent, with only Chu Choshua questioning him, asking, "What are you doing?" Ling Han humphed softly, and replied, opening the door, "Of course. I'm going to take my wife away. What else am I supposed to do? Leave her here to die?" However, even though he had some mastery in formations, the difficulty of the formations before him was far beyond his understanding. He definitely couldn't undo these restrictions anytime soon. If he had known this earlier, he would have held back for longer, only killing Ding Lian after he had undone all of these restrictions. Pa, 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 pa. Applause suddenly reverberated through the garden as a domineering figure descended from the sky. Behind this figure was at least 50 other elites, all of them hovering in the sky. They were all heavenly body tier elites. The leading figure was none other than the Eternity Sky Emperor. He gazed down at them and said, "You people aren't going to kneel upon seeing me?" Boom! A devastating might instantly enveloped them, causing even the left and right ministers and the others to tremble uncontrollably. Ling Han turned around. The situation was different now, and his plan to open the stone door and take Empress Luanxing away was clearly infeasible now. Not only was he not going to open the stone door, but he even had to guard it now, preventing anyone else from nearing it. King of Curses, haven't you learned your lesson yet? Your arm has already been severed once. Perhaps you want your arm to be severed a second time? Ling Han immediately launched a powerful verbal attack. Wang! A wave of disbelief rippled through the heavenly body tier elites behind the Eternity Sky Emperor. Their emperor had actually lost an arm before? And judging by Ling Han's tone, this was somehow related to him? Gasp! Just how powerful was this brat? A dark expression spread across the Eternity Sky Emperor's face. Only he and his brother knew that his arm had been severed while retrieving the Nine-Demon Sword. How was a third person aware of this? He refused to believe that his brother, Chang Tao, would reveal this secret to others. Moreover, Ling Han was far too toxic. He had actually called him the King of Curses. However, it would be extremely difficult for him to explain himself. Was he supposed to say that his severed arm had nothing to do with Ling Han? And that it had actually been severed by the ancestral weapon of his clan? This would only smear his name more and more. In any case, was he here to debate this point? Who's going to capture him for me? He asked calmly. As the ruler of a majestic empire, he naturally couldn't do everything personally. I'm not late to the party, am I? Another domineering figure descended into the garden. This person was none other than the Jade Drop Emperor. Like the Eternity Sky Emperor, he also had a large group of heavenly body tier elites behind him. The faces of the left and right ministers and the others were all ashen. Apart from surrendering, their only other option was to battle to the death. Was there a third option for them to take? This elder will capture him, an old and hunchbacked elder said as he stepped forward. His body radiated with an air of death, and it was clear that he was already nearing the very end of his lifespan. However, the aura that radiated from him was still incredibly formidable. Judging by the fact that this elder could refer to himself as Elder before the Eternity Sky Emperor, he definitely wouldn't be a pushover. He was an elite at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, and he had in fact shot to fame even before the Eternity Sky Emperor. It was also because of this that he was nearing the end of his lifespan. He stared at Ling Han, curiosity and greed in his eyes. There was more so a glimmer of eager anticipation. This youth had shot to the heavenly body tier in such a short amount of time, so there was definitely a great secret hidden on his body. If he could obtain this secret, perhaps he would be able to break through to the Eternal River tier. If he succeeded, he would regain his vitality and also gain an exorbitant lifespan. Moreover, he would become the most powerful being in this world, someone who could rule over an entire galaxy. These thoughts fueled his greed. However, he was also slightly worried. What if Ling Han had simply ingested some great herb of heaven and earth? Young man, obediently surrender to me. This elder can grant you a swift death. He reached over, his hand transforming into a gigantic jet black palm as he did so. How could Ling Han block this attack? His opponent was an elite at the peak stage of the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. Chapter 14:14 Might of the Flying Fire Pill. This elder wasn't some elite at the low extreme or high extreme of the heavenly body tier. Rather, he was an elite at the consummate level. Moreover, it was very likely that he had reached the peak stage of the consummate level. Not only that, but this elder was also a 3-star genius. In terms of cultivation level alone, there was already a gulf of 11 stars between Ling Han and the elder. Add to that the power of the nation and natural talent, and Ling Han was at least 15 stars of battle prowess weaker than the elder. Could he possibly overcome this disadvantage? No way. Ling Han glanced at the door behind him, and his expression instantly became resolute. He would defend this stone room at all costs. It was his wife behind him, so he definitely couldn't move aside. In fact, he couldn't even take a single step back. Thus, he would battle. Ling Han roared as he activated Tide of the Ages. This was a celestial technique, and it was the most powerful technique that he possessed at this moment. Wang! The gigantic palm of the elder surged forward, yet it continued to grow dimmer and dimmer. By the time it arrived before Ling Han, the might that it possessed had already completely dissipated. Upon seeing this, everyone was stunned into silence. There was a gulf of 15 stars between Ling Han and the elder. How could there exist such a prodigy in this world? However, they had witnessed this with their very own eyes. Ling Han had genuinely blocked the attack of the elder. The Eternity Sky Emperor's eyes lit up, and he remarked, "Interesting." Heh. The Jade Drop Emperor was also astonished by what he saw. His fingers tensed slightly, and this was a sign that he felt an urge to battle. Good one, brat. The elder also praised Ling Han for his astonishing feat. Although he hadn't unleashed his full power in that strike, what was his cultivation level? He was even more curious about Ling Han now. At the same time, he was also more certain that Ling Han possessed some earth-shattering secret on his body. He launched another attack. This time, his attack was 10 times more powerful than before. Ling Han charged forward, activating Tide of the Ages again. This time, however, even Tide of the Ages was unable to completely dissipate the elder's strike. Thump, thump, thump. Ling Han was forced to stumble back a dozen or so steps due to the remaining power of the elder's strike. Seeing that he would crash into the stone door if he took one more backward step, Ling Han resolutely gritted his teeth and forcefully stamped his right foot into the ground. Pung! His foot sunk into the earth, stopping his momentum and stabilizing his body. If he had stumbled back and let the force naturally dissipate through his body, his powerful physique would have completely absorbed the power of the strike. However, because he had forcefully stopped himself, his inside started to churn due to the sudden change in momentum. He couldn't help but spit a mouthful of blood. However, he didn't frown because of this. Instead, he stood tall and proud. The onlookers were all moved by his determination, especially Chu Qiushue and the other members of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. They couldn't help but feel admiration for him. Compared to Ding Lian's selfish love, Ling Han's love was evidently more worthy of being called true love. However, in the face of crushing power, what use was true love? Ling Han could withstand the attacks of the elder temporarily, but could he withstand them forever? He could withstand the attacks of one person, but could he withstand the attacks of 10 people or even 100 people? Elder Gu, shoo him away, the Eternity Sky Emperor commanded. Ling Han was blocking the stone door right now, preventing them from undoing the restrictions on it. Understood, the elder said with a nod. He launched another strike at Ling Han, saying, "Come, young man, let us battle in the sky to our heart's content." "Battle ya mom." Ling Han spat. "With me here, none of you are going to touch my wife." The expressions of the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor changed drastically. Why had they invaded the Chaotic Star's majestic empire? Was it to seize the land of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire and kidnap the Empress while they were at it, or was it purely to kidnap the Empress for themselves? Only the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor knew the answer to this question. However, they had both stated that as long as Empress Luan Xing was willing to marry them, they would even abdicate from their throne and make her the new ruler. Yet, right now, Ling Han was actually referring to the Empress as his wife? How could the two emperors not be enraged? The elder was also enraged. He was more so unable to accept Ling Han's behavior. Ling Han had appeared mighty and proud just then, yet he had suddenly turned around and spat, "Battle ya mom." Was he still an elite? How could he utter such vile and base things? He was seething with anger as he threw another punch. A black light orb that was as large as a human burst from his fist. This light orb was pure black, and it radiated with a boundless aura of death. It was as if one would instantly lose their vitality if they came into contact with this black light orb. 5 aggregates destruction, the elder roared proudly. This was a technique that he had created himself after receiving inspiration from some ancient technique. In the past, this technique had only possessed the power of 4 aggregates. However, he had forcefully imbued it with the power of the 5th aggregate, raising its power significantly. Like before, Ling Han responded by activating Tide of the Ages. This was a celestial technique that was extremely effective for both attack and defense. Of course, the most important thing was that Ling Han possessed a physique that was almost as tough as level 12 godly metal. As such, he could withstand the remaining power of the Elder's attacks that Tide of the Ages couldn't completely dissipate. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh with emotion. At the end of the day, he wasn't a member of the Ding clan, so there was no way he could grasp Tide of the Ages comprehensively. Perhaps he could fully master this celestial secret technique after he advanced to the Severing Mundane tier. Now, however, his grasp of this celestial technique was still slightly inferior to the members of the Ding clans. One had to realize that in Ding Yaolong's hands, this technique had been able to overcome a barrier of 2 entire minor levels. While he was sighing with emotion, the Eternity Sky Emperor, Jade Drop Emperor, and the others were all feeling more and more shocked. So be it if Ling Han had only blocked 1 or 2 strikes from the Elder. However, he still appeared extremely energetic and spirited, as if he could battle on for another 8 or 10 years. They couldn't waste any more time. Although Empress Luan Xing was still locked in seclusion, who could say when she would exit seclusion? Even if she hadn't broken through to the pinnacle level, her normal battle prowess was still incredibly powerful. In fact, the 2 emperors wouldn't be able to contain her even if they teamed up against her. Now was their best chance. Attack together. Capture that brat and shatter the stone door, the Eternity Sky Emperor commanded in a booming voice. Nearby, the Jade Drop Emperor also issued an identical command. The 100 or so heavenly body tier elites instantly leaped into action, all of them launching a flurry of relentless attacks at Ling Han. How could Ling Han block these attacks? He couldn't. Chu Qiushue and the others were all plunged into despair. Right now, Ling Han's only option was to bow his head and surrender. There were several elites at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier here, and Ling Han had struggled to deal with even just one of them. So, what could he do now? However, a cold smile appeared on Ling Han's face. Wang. He unleashed heaven's might before throwing an arm out and tossing a handful of flying fire pills toward his enemies. Not one flying fire pill, but a handful of flying fire pills. Those who possessed a lower cultivation level than Ling Han were all crushed into the ground by the formidable power of heaven's might. Meanwhile, even those at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier had grave expressions on their faces. Their power had been suppressed by 2 entire stars. It was also at this moment that the flying fire pills exploded. These were level 10 divine pills. Moreover, they weren't pills refined for ingesting, but rather pills refined for use as weapons. Rather than calling them alchemical pills, it would probably be more accurate to call them explosive pills. These were pills that could severely wound even elites at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. Ling Han hadn't tossed just a single explosive pill, but rather a handful of explosive pills. What kind of concept was this? Boom! 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 Dozens of flying fire pill exploded in the air, the power that they unleashed much alike the full power attacks of several dozen elites at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. This naturally caused a devastating shock wave to sweep through the garden. Even though the left minister and the others were standing far away, they were still lifted into the air by the powerful air currents generated by the explosion. Even they were affected as such, so it was only natural that the targets of Ling Han's attacks were affected much, much more. 7 heavenly body tier elites were instantly killed, while another 17 received severe wounds, and 21 received minor wounds. This astounding feat was worthy of being recorded in the history books. It was truly an earth-shattering achievement. Ling Han. The Eternity Sky Emperor couldn't help but spit out Ling Han's name in fury. Compared to the Jade Drop Majestic Empire, his Eternity Sky Majestic Empire had received much more damage. Moreover, Ling Han had already caused chaos in the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire 20 or so years ago, killing several heavenly body tier elites. Thus, this sudden turn of events was naturally more insult to their injury. The fuck are you screaming? Ling Han scolded, not holding back in the least. Chapter 14-15 Forcing me to unleash my trump card. The Eternity Sky Emperor was infuriated. From birth until now, since when had anyone dared to scold him like this? You're seeking death. He forcefully suppressed his rage. Boom! He then unleashed his aura, which transformed into a column of divine flames that soared into the sky. This column of flames birthed all kinds of fire element divine beasts, fire dragons, fire phoenixes, fire kirans. All of these beasts reared their heads as they roared aloud. Come! Ling Han said as he hooked his finger provocatively. Want to make a bet? I'll be able to suppress you within 1,000 years. Or perhaps you want to wait until my wife comes out of seclusion? I'm sure she can also smack you to death with ease. Toxic brat. The Eternity Sky Emperor unleashed an attack. This attack was completely different from the Elder's attacks. Not only was the Eternity Sky Emperor at the peak stage of the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, but he was also a 4-star genius. Moreover, he was the ruler of a majestic empire, meaning that he could draw on the power of the nation unrestrainedly. Of course, this was as long as there was still the power of the nation to draw on, and as long as his body could withstand the power. On top of being a 4-star genius, his battle prowess elevated by another 2 stars. How could Ling Han block this attack? Even though Ling Han activated Tide of the Ages, he was still sent flying by the Eternity Sky Emperor's strike. However, he forcefully stopped his momentum the instant that he struck the stone door. A cloud of blood exploded from his body, which had already become mangled and bloody. You want to steal my wife with such measly power? Have you wasted your tens of millions of years of cultivation on a dog? Even though he was severely wounded, Ling Han still rattled off a string of insults. The Eternity Sky Emperor was astonished at the same time that he was enraged. Ling Han was only at the early stage of the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. If he were given some time and advanced to the consummate level, no, just the high extreme, could anyone at the heavenly body tier still manage to kill him? This person definitely had to die. This emperor will also join the fun. Following a hearty laugh, the Jade Drop Emperor also hovered over, throwing a punch as he did so. A water dragon instantly materialized in the air, surging toward Ling Han like a wave. Swoosh! There was the sound of crashing waves. This was a mighty and astonishing sound. The two emperors were actually ganging up against a junior? This was completely and utterly shameless. However, who dared to say anything? At their supreme cultivation level, would they still care about the opinions of others? To say nothing of ganging up against an elite at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier, what would it matter even if they ganged up against and killed a cultivator at the mountain river tier? Of course, this entire situation was just a joke. However, this was a joke that no one dared to laugh at. So, how was Ling Han going to block this attack? Ling Han waved his hand and retrieved a large handful of flying fire pill, saying, "Old hooligans, see how I blow you two up." Shio, shio, shio. He started to throw the flying fire pills. Boom. 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 Deafening explosions ripped through the garden as everyone was thrown off their feet. This was already beyond the attack of an elite at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. The stacked power of the several hundred flying fire pills meant that their destructive power had also risen explosively. Ling Han activated Tide of the Ages again, finally managing to dissipate the power of the two majestic emperors' attacks. Following this blistering exchange, everyone's mouth was hanging wide open in shock. So what if they were at the heavenly body tier? They were still shocked, speechless at this moment. The two emperors had teamed up, yet they were still unable to suppress Ling Han. In fact, their attacks had been completely blocked. It didn't matter that Ling Han had borrowed external power. On Joint Peace Planet, the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor were the embodiment of invincibility. Right now, however, they were unable to suppress Ling Han even though they had teamed up. This battle was enough to spread Ling Han's name throughout the world. It was a shame that he was destined to die here. Today's battle was his swan song. "Humph, how many more of these weapons do you have?" the Jade Drop Emperor asked with a cold sneer. "Enough to blow you up." Ling Han waved his hand, and another large handful of flying fire pills materialized in his palm. Fuck. Even the two emperors couldn't help but curse in their minds at this moment. How can this brat possess so many of these devastating weapons? Did he fucking plunder the treasure storage of an Eternal River tier elite? They naturally weren't aware that Ling Han was the Alchemy Emperor. Moreover, he had also moved an entire forest of explosion fruit trees into the Black Tower. Thus, he had an astonishing number of flying fire pills in his possession. "Everyone, attack. We must exhaust him of all his trump cards." The Eternity Sky Emperor waved his hand, and the heavenly body tier elites who were still capable of battle all stepped forward. The Jade Drop Emperor also issued an identical command. Right now, their most important task was to kill Ling Han. After killing him, they could then open the stone door and capture Empress Luan Xing. Among those who stepped forward, there were 9 elites at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier and 19 elites at the high extreme of the heavenly body tier. As for those at the medium extreme, they didn't need to participate in this battle. In any case, there were already enough elites to deal with Ling Han. Moreover, those at the medium extreme didn't even possess the ability to wound him. Ling Han took a deep breath. With so many elites ganging up on him, even the flying fire pills wouldn't be of much use. "Are you people forcing me to unleash my ultimate trump card?" Ling Han asked calmly. "Die." The elites of the two majestic empires charged forward. With so many of them together, they naturally weren't afraid of Ling Han. "Heh, don't cry for mommy." Ling Han waved his right hand, tossing a figure into the air. "Fuck you. Fuck you." This was naturally the notionless saint. Moreover, he was understandably enraged at this moment. He was on the cusp of breaking through to the Sun-Moon tier, yet he had suddenly been dragged out of the Black Tower again. Thus, he couldn't help but shout a string of curses. Yet, when he calmed down and surveyed the surroundings, he couldn't help but grimace. Holy fuck. Brat, are you a star of misfortune? How do you attract trouble wherever you go? If he still possessed the same power as his previous life, he naturally wouldn't be afraid of the several dozen heavenly body tier elites before him. Yet, he was only a shell of his past self now. However, he had already been pushed to the fore, so he could only grit his teeth and act the part. "You people are seeking death," he said with a cold humph. Boom! His Genesis tier aura burst into the surroundings, and it was as if a saint had descended. What? The heavenly body tier elites hurriedly stopped in their tracks, stunned expressions on their faces. This aura was far too powerful. It was so powerful that it transcended the level of their existence. It was as if they would possess no ability to resist if this person desired to target them. Eternal River tier, this was definitely an Eternal River tier elite. Terror instantly spread through their minds. The elites were completely oblivious to the fact that the notionless saint was only a hollow shell. "Our respects to you, Senior." Including the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor, everyone bowed and greeted the notionless saint with respect. There was no doubt about his aura. His cultivation was definitely transcendent above the heavenly body tier. The notionless saint's expression remained unchanging, and he calmly said, "I have a deep relationship with this young man. Why are you people troubling him?" Everyone came to a sudden realization. No wonder Ling Han's cultivation speed was so incredible. It was because he had the guidance of an Eternal River tier elite. With such guidance, it would be strange if his cultivation speed wasn't incredible. They were all extremely envious. How good would it be if they could also receive guidance from an Eternal River tier elite? Anyhow, with such an elite behind Ling Han, were they going to abandon their plans just like this? The Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor both frowned at the same time. They had indeed been frightened by the aura of the notionless saint just then. However, they quickly noticed some peculiarities. The notionless saint's aura felt a little brittle, and it was as if he were only strong in appearance. His aura was far less terrifying than they had initially imagined. There were suspicions in their mind, yet they didn't dare to act impulsively. If their suspicions were wrong, and the Eternal River tier elite unleashed his might, what would it matter that they were both emperors of a majestic empire? They still wouldn't be able to escape the fate of death. "Please forgive us, Senior," the Eternity Sky Emperor said. He appeared respectful, yet he was actually observing the notionless saint closely. They had already pushed Ling Han so far, yet the notionless saint still hadn't lashed out and killed all of them. Instead, it was as if he wanted to resolve this conflict peacefully. Was this not worthy of suspicion? Since when were elites this good-tempered? How experienced was the notionless saint? He could naturally sense the suspicion from the Eternity Sky Emperor and the others. He immediately humphed and unleashed his aura, causing a mountain of pressure to instantly descend on the elites of the two majestic empires. Chapter 14-16 All Fooled. Boom! Like a surge of furious waves, a saintly aura swept through the surroundings, causing an earth-shattering commotion. The Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor were both drenched in cold sweat. They both had a feeling that as long as the notionless saint wanted to, he could completely obliterate them, body, mind, and all. They would die on foreign soil with no proper burial or send-off. At this moment, they didn't dare to have any more miscellaneous thoughts. Meanwhile, the notionless saint was also drenched in cold sweat. Right now, he was merely using his aura to frighten his enemies. If he failed to frighten them, he would end up frightening himself to death. However, frightening them with his aura wasn't a long-term plan. After all, his enemies would become suspicious if he was all talk and no action. A thought flashed through his mind, and he said, "To come across each other is fate. Seeing that you've all reached a barrier in cultivation, let this saint provide you with some guidance." Everyone was overjoyed but also extremely curious. How high and mighty was an Eternal River tier elite? Yet, he was actually lowering his own status and offering to provide them with guidance? This naturally caused them to feel extremely flattered. Although they were confused, who would reject such an incredible opportunity? If they knew that the Notionless Saint wasn't an Eternal River tier elite, but rather a Genesis tier saint, they would definitely become even more stunned. Moreover, if they knew that this saint had already lost his battle prowess and merely possessed the knowledge and experience of a saint, they would further become wild with delight. They would definitely capture and lock him up so that they could force all the secret techniques from him. The Notionless Saint ignored their reactions, and started to offer his guidance, describing and analyzing the barriers and problems that heavenly body tier elites might come across. The elites listened intently, and before they knew it, all of them had already sat down. Even the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor weren't exceptions. They could feel a hint of resonance in their bodies, and it was as if they could comprehend the Tao of the next tier at any moment. Of course, there wasn't anything surprising about this. The knowledge of saints was far transcendent above the knowledge of other elites, so they could easily trigger resonance within others. However, whether or not one could genuinely achieve comprehension was down to one's own making and fortune. It was as if the Notionless Saint had transformed into an enlightened monk and was spreading his wisdom to the masses. Meanwhile, the heavenly body tier elites all sat upright, listening intently to his words. Even Chu Chioshua and the others unknowingly started to walk over. Seeing the looks on the elites' faces, Ling Han couldn't help but praise the Notionless Saint in his mind. As expected of a saint, his ability to fool others was truly convincing and effective. If Ling Han wasn't so familiar with him, it was entirely possible that he would be fooled too. Blah, blah, blah. The Notionless Saint continued to offer his guidance, and time slowly crept by. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Heavenly body tier elites didn't need to eat or drink, as their bodies could naturally absorb spiritual qi and transform this into energy. Thus, they didn't need to worry about dying from hunger. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Time flew by, and the entire Point Star City had already been conquered by the two majestic empires. The soldiers from the Chaotic Star's majestic empire had either surrendered or died in battle, with few of them managing to flee. However, no one dared to disturb this garden, for very obvious reasons. There were so many elites here, so who dared to cause a ruckus? Anyhow, the heavenly body tier elites were completely absorbed in the Notionless Saint's teachings. They were blissfully unaware that 3 months had already passed. In their minds, they had only been listening to the Notionless Saint for just a short moment. As expected of a saint, he's truly skilled at fooling people. Ling Han didn't dare to do anything rash either. He definitely didn't dare to walk over and kill the 2 emperors. After all, that would be an impossible task. Even in their current condition, the gulf between their power was still far too large. It would be near impossible for him to succeed. The best-case scenario was if the Notionless Saint could drag this on for 8 years or even a decade, all the way until Empress Wanxing exited seclusion. 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. The Eternity Sky Emperor suddenly came to his senses. How strange. He had already focused all of his attention on comprehension for the past 2 years, so how come he hadn't seen an iota of improvement? Moreover, this elite was being far too generous, wasn't he? He had actually accompanied them for 2 years, providing them with knowledge and guidance. Something's wrong, something is definitely wrong. In the beginning, he had already suspected that the Notionless Saint was strong in appearance but weak in reality. However, he had immediately suppressed this suspicion after being startled by his terrifying aura. Yet, right now, this suspicion was boiling to the surface again, even more powerful than before. Shwa! He suddenly launched an attack. Boom! Countless bursts of flames danced in the air, making him appear like an ancient god of fire. *T. Brat, hurry up and save me, the notionless saint hurriedly shouted. He instantly became as white as a sheet. He still had yet to exact his revenge, so he naturally wasn't willing to die in this place. Although Ling Han had also been sitting nearby, he hadn't been listening to the notionless saint's guidance. Instead, he had ingested an exceptional talent black origin pill every once in a while, using these alchemical pills to raise his cultivation. Meanwhile, he had also kept an eye on the Eternity Sky Emperor and the other elites. Thus, he was able to react straight away upon seeing the Eternity Sky Emperor launch an attack. He instantly grabbed the notionless saint. Xiao! He moved the notionless saint into the Black Tower. The other elites instantly woke from the trance-like state. They had all been petrified by the notionless saint's aura when he had appeared, and the notionless saint had immediately started to offer his guidance immediately after that. Thus, the elites had been left with no opportunity to ponder where the notionless saint had come from. Only now did they finally come to their senses. How could a living person have suddenly appeared out of thin air? And now he had suddenly vanished back into thin air? Spatial God Tool. Moreover, how could a supreme elite have been frightened away by an attack from the Eternity Sky Emperor? This is definitely fishy. Sure enough, we were almost tricked by you, the Eternity Sky Emperor said with a cold chuckle. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, "Oh, didn't a bunch of fools already fall for the trick?" The expressions of the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor instantly darkened. Indeed, they had already sat here for 2 years. If it weren't for the fact that cultivating in seclusion could span for hundreds or even thousands of years, they would have already suffered a resounding defeat. The Jade Drop Emperor felt even more furious than the Eternity Sky Emperor. After all, he had only come to his senses after the Eternity Sky Emperor had launched an attack. His expression was incredibly dark, and it was as if he had been smacked across the face by someone. "Die!" he roared. Boom! His entire body turned transparent before rapidly growing in size. After growing to a height of 3,000 meters, it was as if his body were composed of flowing water. Moreover, this water was still swirling around within his body. Tao manifestation. Boom! The Jade Drop Emperor's palm landed, not only enveloping Ling Han but also enveloping the small mountain that rested behind him. Not only was he going to slap Ling Han to death, but he was also going to obliterate the small mountain and capture Empress Luan Xing. They had already wasted enough time. Ling Han took a deep breath before also shaking his body and transforming into a giant that measured 3,000 meters tall. This gigantic body was formed from his origin power. The higher one's cultivation level was, the larger and more solid their Tao manifestation would be. Ling Han swung a fist to meet the Jade Drop Emperor's attack. Pung! There was a violent collision, and Ling Han was thrown to the ground like a crashing meteor. He had already activated Tide of the Ages, yet he was still no match for the Jade Drop Emperor. The Eternity Sky Emperor seized this opportunity to attack. He would kick Ling Han while he was down. Sneak attack? Ganging up? Would the Eternity Sky Emperor give a toss about this? An elite ruler like him would do everything they could in order to achieve their goals. Ling Han had just launched an attack with his full power, so he was currently at his weakest. That being the case, how could he block this attack? Pung! He was struck by the powerful attack, and even his godly bones were unable to withstand the overwhelming power. Pa, pa, pa. Like beans being stir-fried, there was the sound of cracking. However, these cracking sounds were deafening as they reverberated throughout heaven and earth. After all, this was a heavenly body tier elite. Ling Han bared his teeth and hissed in pain. The power difference between them was far too large. In fact, this strike had almost ended his life. Right now, Ling Han was truly in a sorry state. His body was already completely mangled, with blood and pulverized flesh covering every inch of his body. It was already difficult to tell that he was human. Not being instantly killed by the two emperors was already an astounding feat. If he wasn't even wounded, that would truly be a joke. The Eternity Sky Emperor humphed as he raised his right hand. He was going to kill this brat once and for all. A drop of indestructible true fluid circulated, and Ling Han instantly jumped to his feet again. At the same time, the gory wounds on his body rapidly healed and returned to normal. This sudden change in events stunned everyone. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Don't even think about laying a finger on my wife. Chapter 14-17 Freakish Recovery Ability. Holy fuck. Are you a freak? Everyone was stunned speechless. This was far too astonishing. Ling Han's body had already been beaten beyond recognition, yet he had actually managed to recover in the blink of an eye? If he were so freakish, why didn't he ascend heaven? However, their feelings of shock instantly transformed into greed the very next instant. Their breathing quickened, and a bright glimmer appeared in their eyes. This was definitely the effect of some supreme cultivation technique. After all, they hadn't seen Ling Han ingesting any alchemical pill or activating any rare treasure. Even if activating this cultivation technique required a huge sacrifice, the fact that it could instantly heal one's wounds was still an invaluable life-saving ability. For example, if one were severely wounded during a battle with a foe, yet they suddenly recovered to their peak condition again, this would give them a huge advantage regardless of whether they decided to counterattack or flee. How could there exist such an incredible cultivation technique in this world? I want it. I want it. I want it. The heavenly body tier elites were all filled with greed as they stared at Ling Han. Even the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor were no different. Compared to his cultivation technique, it was as if they could put Empress Luan Xing aside first. In this world, strength was the most important quality. With strength, one could naturally attain power, status, women, and anything else they desired. Right now, snatching the cultivation technique from Ling Han could increase their strength. Very well, very well. However, how many strikes can you withstand? The Eternity Sky Emperor launched another attack, throwing a punch that seemed ordinary at first glance. However, this strike enveloped the entire surroundings, and it was like an emperor descending from the heavens. Would its subjects dare to resist its might? Meanwhile, the Jade Drop Emperor didn't launch another attack. He was biding his time, waiting for Ling Han to reveal his weakness after blocking the Eternity Sky Emperor's attack. When the opportunity showed itself, he would deal Ling Han the killing blow, just like the Eternity Sky Emperor had done so before. Motherfucker. Ling Han raised his arm and tossed a large handful of flying fire pills toward the Eternity Sky Emperor. The Jade Drop Emperor had activated his Tao manifestation just then, and his colossal body would have dispersed the might of the flying fire pill, reducing its effects. However, the Eternity Sky Emperor hadn't activated his Tao manifestation, so wasn't he asking for a serving of flying fire pills? Boom, 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 boom. There was a string of deafening explosions, and even the surrounding air was twisted and distorted. The nearby heavenly body tier elites were all thrown off their feet and sent flying back. From this, one could tell just how many flying fire pills Ling Han had tossed. The Eternity Sky Emperor wore a livid expression as blood dripped from his right hand. He had actually been wounded by the attack just then. Although this was only a tiny wound, it was a wound that had been caused by a measly elite at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. He couldn't help but feel utterly humiliated. Emperors couldn't be humiliated. He roared in fury as he finally activated his Tao manifestation, transforming into a flaming giant that measured 3,000 meters in height. He was like an ancient god of flames. He then raised his foot and stomped down on Ling Han. There was a sense of profound contempt behind his attack. He was going to stomp on Ling Han, and what could Ling Han do about this? He possessed a crushing advantage in both cultivation and power, and his Tao manifestation further magnified this advantage manyfold. Without even needing to aim, he could easily flatten Ling Han and the small mountain behind him. Of course, no one knew whether the secret room built into the small mountain would collapse or not. However, they believed that it wouldn't. Otherwise, it would be far too weak. Ling Han leaped into the sky. He was on the back foot because he had to guard the small mountain behind him. His wife was cultivating in seclusion inside this mountain. He could shed blood, but he couldn't retreat. Ling Han activated Tide of the Ages once again. However, like before, he was brutally beaten into the ground. Meanwhile, the Jade Drop Emperor seized this opportunity to attack. Boom! Ling Han couldn't dodge, and his body was twisted out of shape again. He had suffered devastating wounds. He circulated another drop of indestructible true fluid. However, even the effects of the indestructible true fluid would decrease significantly when used in quick succession. Ling Han only managed to heal his wounds completely after circulating 2 drops of indestructible true fluid. Even so, the speed of his recovery was still evidently slower than before. However, this still rendered everyone speechless with shock. This astonishing healing technique could actually be used numerous times in quick succession. Ling Han wiped the blood from the corners of his mouth before saying in disdain, "You two truly cooperate well. Have you been together for so long and fucked each other so much that you've developed tacit understanding? Been together for long? Fucked until they developed tacit understanding? What kind of fucking drivel was this?" The expressions of the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor changed drastically. The mouth of this brat was far too toxic. He had actually dared to slander them, the rulers of majestic empires. "You're truly seeking death." Ling Han laughed loudly as he bent his body like a bow and activated the annihilating dragon star arrow. The pupils of the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor contracted slightly. They could sense the formidable might of this arrow. Even they could sense its might, so it went without saying that the others could also sense its might. In fact, those under the consummate level of the heavenly body tier were all drenched in cold sweat. It was as if they would face certain death if they were targeted by Ling Han's arrow. At this instant, neither the Eternity Sky Emperor or the Jade Drop Emperor made a move. This was because Ling Han had not only activated the annihilating dragon star arrow, but even imbued it with a wisp of heaven's might. This was incredibly threatening. However, the two emperors were both king tiers, after all. How confident were king tiers? Moreover, their cultivation levels were also far above that of Ling Han. Thus, they quickly regained their composure, killing intent bursting from their bodies. They exchanged a glance, and they both discovered the determination in each other's eyes. Even if they couldn't capture Empress Luan Xing today, they would still definitely kill Ling Han. This young man was far too terrifying. He was not even 500 years old, yet he already possessed such devastating power. So how much would he grow if he were given another 500 years? He would threaten the very existence of their two majestic empires. We have to kill him. We definitely have to kill him today and snatch his cultivation technique. I'll then capture Empress Luan Xing and keep her in my chambers forever. Upon thinking of Empress Luan Xing's ethereal beauty, they couldn't help but feel a jolt in their hearts. What did it matter that they were king tiers? They still felt an urge to howl in lust and excitement. Before our absolute might, what use is resistance? The Eternity Sky Emperor unsheathed a sword. Of course, this wasn't the Nine Demons' sword. However, the might of this sword was still tremendous, with sword chi soaring into the sky. This was the most powerful god tool among the heavenly body tier. The Jade Drop Emperor also wore a solemn expression as an emerald spear slowly burst out from his body. This was the ancestral weapon of the Jade Drop Majestic Empire. Although it wasn't at the Eternal River tier, it was still worthy of being called a paramount god tool of the heavenly body tier. Both emperors were apprehensive of Ling Han's potential. If they couldn't kill him here, who knew what kind of terrifying threat he would pose in the future? In any case, Ling Han possessed a supreme cultivation technique that they were hell-bent on snatching. Comparing god tools? Ling Han asked with a cold chuckle. With a thought, the divine demon's sword immediately materialized in the air above his head, columns of divine light flowing down from its body. It was only a level 10 god tool, yet it was countless times more domineering than the sword and spear of the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor. It was as if the divine demon's sword were saying, "I am heaven, and you must bow down to me." Everyone was stunned. This was merely a sword, so how could it release such a domineering aura? Little did they know that the divine demon's sword was forged from a material that would eventually evolve into divine metal. Combined with Ling Han's martial intent, it more so possessed the formidable aura of heaven's might. Thus, it naturally possessed a domineering and transcendent aura. In terms of quality alone, the divine demon's sword was far, far transcendent above the level of Ling Han. Meanwhile, Ling Han held a wooden sword in his hand. This was a powerful weapon from the netherworld. Although he was unable to awaken it, this didn't prevent him from using it as an ordinary weapon. Moreover, as long as this wooden sword tasted blood, its destructive ability wouldn't be weaker than that of the divine demon's sword. The divine demon's sword radiated with a brilliant divine light, rendering the Eternity Sky Emperor's sword and the Jade Drop Emperor's spear dull and spiritless. It was as if they weren't god tools at all. In fact, even the violent aura of the wooden sword was suppressed, making it seem far more obedient than normal. Before the might of a celestial tool, everything was as weak as trash. Chapter 14-18 Sowing Discord. This young man. How many treasures did he possess? Everyone was stunned yet also incredibly curious. Of Ling Han's two swords, it was clear that either of them could be categorized as a precious treasure. However, both these swords were now being wielded by the same person. This truly embarrassed the older generation elites to death. After cultivating and adventuring for so long, they still couldn't compare to a young man who had yet to turn 500 years old. The Eternity Sky Emperor's expression became serious as he felt his sword trembling in his hand. His divine sword had developed a spirit, and this trembling was the sign that the sword's spirit was experiencing terror. This was terror induced by a higher-level being. What kind of sword was that? Its might wasn't great, and it was merely domineering in appearance, so why was it causing his fire dragon sword to feel terror? The fire dragon sword was a divine sword that had been continuously nurtured by generation after generation of elites of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire. It had already developed a tool spirit, and when awakened, even he couldn't parallel its might. Yet, a god tool such as this was actually experiencing terror because of a sword that wasn't very high in level? This was far too strange. Even an Eternal River tier god tool couldn't induce such terror in his sword. Die! The Jade Drop Emperor raised his spear as he charged at Ling Han. He could also sense the terror that had enveloped his emerald water spear. Thus, he decided to attack immediately, seeking to kill Ling Han as soon as possible. Otherwise, the spirit of his emerald water spear ran the risk of being petrified into dissipation. Wang! The divine demon's sword slashed downward by itself, heaven's might suffusing into the surroundings and forcefully suppressing the Jade Drop Emperor's battle prowess by 2 stars. Under Ling Han's nurturing, the divine demon's sword also possessed the complete power of heaven's might. This was because it was forged from divine metal, allowing it to withstand and utilize this kind of martial intent. If it were forged from ordinary godly metal, perhaps it would shatter itself to oblivion if it attempted to unleash heaven's might. It was a pity that the heaven's might of the divine demon's sword couldn't stack with the heaven's might unleashed by Ling Han. This was because they came from the same source, the heaven's might unleashed by the divine demon's sword originating from the martial intent that Ling Han had imbued within it. In other words, there was no difference between the heaven's might that they unleashed. The Jade Drop Emperor was astounded. His power had fallen drastically, by no less than 100-fold. He hurriedly stopped his attack. The immense drop in his power was a cause for great alarm. Upon seeing the Jade Drop Emperor retreat, the Eternity Sky Emperor couldn't help but frown. "What the hell are you doing?" he humphed before wielding his sword and charging forward. However, he immediately experienced what the Jade Drop Emperor had just experienced. There was shock on his face as he ground to a halt. However, greed slowly spread across his face as he stared at the divine demon sword hovering in the sky. If he could obtain that sword, how much would his battle prowess increase by? If others lost 2 stars of power, wouldn't that be equivalent to him gaining 2 stars of power? Gasp. This sword was far too valuable. This sword could challenge the power of an entire nation. Ling Han grinned and said, "Jade Drop Emperor, why don't we team up to kill the King of Curses first?" What? The Jade Drop Emperor was confused by this sudden question. Even if you're trying to sow discord, this method is far too poor, don't you think? Even if you two manage to kill me, it's still inevitable that you'll have to battle each other in the end, Ling Han continued. However, let me ask you this. Are you confident that you can achieve victory over him? Definitely not. Ling Han answered for the Jade Drop Emperor. Thus, it's in your best interests to team up with me first. You've seen it yourself. My sword has the ability to suppress the power of others. Given a power advantage of 2 stars, won't killing the King of Curses be a walk in the park for you? We'll kill the King of Curses first, and then you can kill me later. This won't waste much of your time and is also incredibly beneficial, don't you agree? He's fucking correct. At this moment, the Jade Drop Emperor was indeed swayed by Ling Han's words. He could borrow Ling Han's power to kill the Eternity Sky Emperor first. Then, even if his power were suppressed by 2 stars, he would still possess the ability to kill Ling Han. It wouldn't be too difficult and would simply take a little longer than normal. Moreover, at that time, there would be no other competition for the Empress. In addition, the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire and Chaotic Star's Majestic Empire would both fall into his hands. He would become the paramount ruler, and he would also have a stunning beauty in his embrace. He would reach the pinnacle state of his life. Ruling over the joint peace planet and marrying Empress Luan Xing were the life goals of the Jade Drop Emperor. Right now, these goals were within arm's reach. So, how could he not be tempted? Seeing the hesitation on the Jade Drop Emperor's face, the Eternity Sky Emperor hurriedly said, "Don't fall for that brat's trap. That brat is full of tricks, and he's a boundless threat for both of us. It's best that we dispose of him as soon as possible." He was genuinely worried at this moment. If the Jade Drop Emperor decided to turn against him, the power difference of 2 stars would undoubtedly lead to his death. At that time, everything he had done and achieved would be gifted to the Jade Drop Emperor. Moreover, his name would be humiliated even after death. He would become the example of a fool, a story taught to future generations to help them avoid repeating the same mistakes. Meanwhile, the Jade Drop Emperor's heart was beating in excitement. This proposal was far too enticing. Moreover, it was definitely achievable. If he passed this opportunity, he would be relentlessly attacked by the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire even if he managed to capture Empress Luan Xing. He would never see another day of peace. The Eternity Sky Emperor hurriedly waved a hand, and roared, "Everyone, charge! Kill that despicable brat." As long as he captured Ling Han and obtained his divine sword, he would have heaps of time to kill the Jade Drop Emperor afterward. After all, which of the emperors didn't want to kill the other to marry the woman of their dreams? However, Ling Han hadn't offered the same proposal to him. Otherwise, he might have already charged over to attack the Jade Drop Emperor. The Jade Drop Emperor's mind whirred. He was also slightly worried about Ling Han's bag of dirty tricks. After all, he seemed to possess a plethora of precious treasures and profound cultivation techniques. Who knew how many more trump cards he possessed? In the end, he also waved his hand and commanded his heavenly body tier elites to attack Ling Han. He definitely had to obtain that divine sword. He transmitted a message using his divine sense before turning around to face off against the Eternity Sky Emperor. However, neither of them dared to attack the other rashly. Right now, the key to this conflict lay with that divine sword. Whoever obtained that sword would obtain an absolute advantage. Ling Han breathed a sigh of relief. His enticing words had finally rid him of his two greatest enemies. However, the two majestic empires still had a total of 7 elites at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. Dealing with these elites was still a great challenge. In any case, facing 7 elites was still better than facing 9 elites, Ling Han comforted himself in his mind. Wang. The divine demon sword shuddered slightly, continuing to unleash heaven's might as it slashed toward the heavenly body tier elites. Ha, come to my hands. The Jade Drop Emperor suddenly reached over. He wasn't attacking Ling Han simply because he wanted to snatch the divine demon sword. In your dreams. The Eternity Sky Emperor also reached over. He definitely wouldn't allow the Jade Drop Emperor to obtain the divine sword. The two emperors continued to struggle for the divine sword, both of them sabotaging each other's attempts to obtain it. Although they were tied up in this competition, this also rendered the divine demon sword unable to help Ling Han. It could only concentrate on its battle with the two emperors. With the divine demon sword gone, the heavenly body tier elites instantly recovered their full power. They all breathed sighs of relief, their confidence immediately returning. Ling Han cracked a smile. You think only the divine demon sword can suppress your cultivation? Wang. He unleashed heaven's might. What? Why has our power been suppressed again? Strange. We're clearly far away enough from that sword. The heavenly body tier elites were all dumbfounded. Why had this wretched feeling returned again? It's him, someone exclaimed in a shaky voice as they pointed at Ling Han. The remaining elites all turned around to gaze at Ling Han. They were instantly scared silly. A human can actually possess this kind of power? Are you fucking cheating? Ling Han wielded his wooden sword, and balefully said, Today, I'm going to go on a killing spree. He charged forward, his figure as quick as lightning as he activated the lightning sword technique and Tide of the Ages. It was as if he were a wolf among a herd of sheep as he swung his sword, each slash drawing blood. Although the wooden sword wasn't a celestial tool, it was still a deadly weapon from the netherworld. Its quality was definitely astonishingly high. Even though it was severely damaged, rendering it unable to be awakened, it still possessed a terrifying destructive ability. This was especially the case against living beings. As Ling Han slashed down, the wooden sword would unleash bursts of devastating murderous aura that could completely obliterate the vitality of living beings. Moreover, the wooden sword would also absorb the blood of its victims, causing its body to become increasingly crimson. The divine patterns on its body would also become increasingly clear and sinister as if a demon master were about to reincarnate and leap out from it at any moment. Chapter 14:19, So what if I become a demon? Even Ling Han was slightly apprehensive of the wooden sword in his hands. If a demon master truly leaped out from this wooden sword, that would certainly bring them heaps more joy and fun. Right now, however, he didn't have time to worry about this. Heaven was great and earth was great, but what could be greater and more important than his wife? Charge. Ling Han activated the star-plucking step, his lightning sword technique also allowing his attacks to be as quick as flashes of lightning. Coupled with the wooden sword's incredible destructive ability, he was much like a machine of death at this moment. Blood and flesh flew through the air. Everyone here was at the heavenly body tier, yet none of them were able to stop Ling Han's advance. The 19 elites at the high extreme of the heavenly body tier were relentlessly and wantonly killed by Ling Han, 11 of them dying in just a few hours' time. This battle could definitely be recorded in the history books of Joint Peace Planet. This was the bloodiest battle that this planet had seen in at least the past 1 billion years. Close to a dozen heavenly body tier elites had already perished in this battle. Although there were still 7 elites at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, they found it impossible to stop Ling Han after having their power suppressed by 2 stars. More importantly, Ling Han's attacks were far too quick, lightning-like as they struck. In addition, they couldn't determine whom Ling Han would attack beforehand, causing everyone to become worried about their own safety. When Ling Han launched his attacks, it would more so already be too late for the others to provide aid to his victim. The targets of his attacks would only have themselves to rely on. At this moment, could elites at the high extreme still challenge Ling Han's might? No way. Damn it. The expressions of the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor changed drastically. Apart from them, was no else able to contain Ling Han? Attack that mountain, the Jade Drop Emperor suddenly commanded. That's right. Ling Han clearly hadn't needed to face the Emperor's attacks head-on at the beginning, yet he had chosen to do so and receive wounds rather than crash into the stone door on the mountain. That was his weak point. With this in mind, the elites immediately understood what they had to do. They all turned their attention to the small mountain, unleashing a relentless barrage of attacks toward it. Ling Han's killing intent grew even stronger. Affected by the wooden sword in his hand, his eyes more so became crimson, his black hair billowing toward the sky. His clothes also exploded into pieces, revealing his toned and stone-like muscles. He had refined the essence of a demon master before, and now due to the effects of the demonic sword, it was as if he were transforming into a demon. Veins of black divine patterns materialized on his skin, all of them radiating with a sinister aura. Netherworld being. Even though there was no two-realm passageway here, the elites still recognized this at first glance. This was mainly because the Netherworld gave the immortal realm far too much pressure. Thus, even beings higher UPS, at least in a peaceful region such as this, were aware of their existence. This young man is transforming into a demon. Kill him. Everyone is responsible for killing sinister demons from the Netherworld. Humph. Since he's becoming a demon, he'll definitely be discriminated by the heaven and earth of the immortal realm, rendering him unable to wield the power of regulations. Once this power is stripped from him, perhaps he'll become weaker than even ordinary elites at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. The elites were delighted upon hearing this. Ling Han transforming into a demon at this moment was equivalent to him severing his own arms. So what if I become a demon? Ling Han roared with a hearty laugh. Demonic patterns appeared in his eyes and gradually covered his entire face. At this moment it was as if a demon master had taken over his body, causing his aura to far transcend that of ordinary heavenly body tier elites. It was a pity that this aura was the same as the notionless saint's aura, powerful in appearance but weak in reality. Ling Han laughed wildly, and roared, "You dare to harm my wife? Even if I transform into a sinister demon of death, I'll still crawl out of the abyss to slaughter you all." Boom! The wooden sword suddenly combusted. No, it wasn't combusting. Rather, it was releasing flames from its body. These were black flames, flames of death. Boom! Ling Han slashed with the wooden sword, sending bursts of deathly flames into the surroundings. An elite at the low extreme of the heavenly body tier was spectating this battle from the distance, yet he was unable to dodge these flames in time. A wisp of deathly flame burst toward him, giving him a huge fright. He frantically slapped toward it, attempting to extinguish it in its path. However, he was shocked to discover that this flame couldn't be extinguished. Not only that, but it even caused his body to self-combust. Moreover, it was his life force that was self-combusting. One's life force was the very essence of their being. If one's life force was drained, their lifespan would be severed. If they had an original lifespan of 10,000 years, this might drop to 1,000 years, 100 years, or even just a few days. The elite was completely petrified. He didn't want to die. The person next to him instantly rushed over to help. This was an elite at the medium extreme of the heavenly body tier. However, the result was, he also started to self-combust. Fuck. These flames of death are contagious? Everyone was overtaken by apprehension. The two affected elites tried to seek help from others, yet the other elites all avoided them as if they were the plague. "Your Majesty." The two elites turned their pleading eyes to the Eternity Sky Emperor. They were both elites from the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire. The Eternity Sky Emperor immediately stopped his skirmish with the Jade Drop Emperor and made a pressing motion toward the two elites. Boom! A terrifying power burst forth, suppressing the flames of death. However, this power didn't extinguish the flames. The Eternity Sky Emperor's expression changed slightly. There was a hint of apprehension on his face. From this, it could be deduced that he possessed the power to resist the invasion of the flames of death. However, he would need to defend with his full power. Otherwise, he would risk allowing the flames of death to spread. Once the flames of death reached him, it would snowball into an even bigger problem, giving him more and more trouble. At that time, he would have no choice but to resist the flames day and night, without any time to rest. Sure enough, he couldn't underestimate that brat. He had gained possession of a new technique. Brother Chang, it's best that we kill that brat first, the Jade Drop Emperor suggested. He had finally reached a strong resolve. Right now, he felt that Ling Han was the biggest threat to their goal. In fact, he was even more dangerous than the Eternity Sky Emperor. As such, they had to dispose of him as soon as possible. Agreed, the Eternity Sky Emperor responded with a nod. Both of them were rulers of a majestic empire, so it was only natural that they possessed incredibly strong resolve. Once they put their mind to something, nothing would be able to waver them. They both charged toward Ling Han. Wang! Ling Han unleashed heaven's might, causing the power of the two emperors to drop drastically. As long as Ling Han's opponents weren't one major tier above him, they would definitely be affected by the power of heaven's might. Of course, if one's battle prowess were strong enough, they would be able to resist this power for a certain amount of time. For example, during the battle between prodigies, the 10-star geniuses had all possessed techniques to oppose the power of heaven's might. However, those were 10-star geniuses. The Eternity Sky Emperor wasn't a 10-star genius, nor was the Jade Drop Emperor. Good one, brat. The two emperors were unable to hide their astonishment. So be it if the divine sword could suppress their power. However, even Ling Han possessed the ability to suppress their power. This sent a chill down their spines and caused their hair to stand on ends. If their cultivation levels were the same, would they still be a match for Ling Han? Even 4-star geniuses would be suppressed to 2-star geniuses. The two emperors finally didn't hold back any longer, unleashing all of their most powerful techniques. They were far too powerful, so they could have one of them hold Ling Han back while the other prepared a powerful attack. As such, their attacks were all incredibly terrifying. It wasn't long before Ling Han was riddled with wounds. In fact, even his indestructible true fluid was unable to completely heal his wounds. Moreover, he only had 10 drops of indestructible true fluid, and their effects would continue to deteriorate if he used them in quick succession. When Ling Han consumed the last drop of indestructible true fluid, it was as if he had already reached his limit. Die! The two emperors attacked in unison, their fire and water techniques surprisingly working in harmony and even unleashing a more devastating might. The waves of water fused together with the waves of fire, transforming into a formidable column that shot toward Ling Han's chest. Behind Ling Han was the stone door. Without the power of the nation, it was likely that this stone door would be obliterated by the combined attack of the two emperors. Ling Han gritted his teeth as he channeled the indestructible heaven scroll with all of his remaining strength, forming a powerful defense. After reaching great accomplishment, he could block a single strike from a saint. Right now, he could definitely block a single strike from an Eternal River tier elite. Pung! Ling Han crossed his arms before his chest as the column of fire and water slammed into him. He shuddered violently, not only due to the power of the attack, but also due to the regulations of heaven and earth that the two emperors wielded. However, Ling Han had managed to block the attack. Chapter 1420 Rising from the ashes, strong reinforcements finally arrives. What? Everyone's jaw slowly dropped open. In the beginning, Ling Han had been severely wounded even when facing the attack of just one of the emperors, yet right now, he was completely uninjured after withstanding the combined attack of the two emperors. The elites could barely believe their eyes. After the might of the attack swept past him, Ling Han's arms immediately dropped to his side. This kind of defense drained his energy at a rate dozens of times, perhaps even 100 times quicker than normal. With his current abilities, he could only block a maximum of 3 attacks from Eternal River tier elites. Against those at the pinnacle of the Heavenly Body tier, he could block 100 or so attacks with little difficulty. The Jade Drop Emperor and Eternity Sky Emperor exchanged a glance. They could both see the immense astonishment in each other's eyes. They definitely had to kill this young man. The two of them attacked in unison again, fire and water combining to form a formidable attack. Ling Han's physique was incredibly powerful, and during normal times, he wouldn't have needed to use origin power to block such attacks. However, in order to channel the indestructible Heaven Scroll to its peak strength, he had no choice but to consume his origin power. Boom! 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 He was struck again and again, forcing him to stumble back in retreat. At the same time, his origin power was also consumed at an astonishing pace. The brat's about to run out of energy. Humph, it's finally come to an end. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. They had never come across an elite at the medium extreme of the Heavenly Body tier who was so difficult to kill before. Moreover, Ling Han was only pushed to his limits because of his resolve to guard the stone door. Otherwise, it was very likely that he could break through their encirclement and flee. Die. The two emperors had never experienced such a strong urgency to kill someone either. They launched their final attack. Ling Han was facing certain death. Pa! The attack landed, and Ling Han could only resist with his physique. He had already consumed all of his origin power. However, how could he block this attack with just his physique alone? Moreover, he didn't have the energy to activate Tide of the Ages either. Under the devastating might of the attack, his godly bones crumbled and his divine sense shattered. He's as dead as can be. The elites almost burst into rapturous applause. If Ling Han hadn't had the weakness of Empress Yuan Xing, they definitely wouldn't have been able to kill him today. The word lust was topped with a knife. Their ancestors hadn't lied to them. Boom! Ling Han's divine sense had shattered, yet there was still a spark of twinkling light. After a short moment, this spark of light suddenly burst into a ball of furious flames. The level of this flame was far too high, and even the expressions of the two emperors changed drastically. They involuntarily stepped back in retreat. In their eyes, this ball of flames was even more terrifying than the flames of death. If they were inflicted with the flames of death, at least they would still be able to resist. However, if they came into contact with this ball of flames, they would definitely be incinerated into ashes in an instant. These were immortal flames, these were the reincarnation flames of the immortal phoenix. Boom! The ball of immortal flames danced in the air, no one daring to near it. The cry of immortal phoenixes could be heard as the ball of flames rapidly grew larger. At the same time, the regulations of heaven and earth enveloped these immortal flames, allowing a complete divine sense to rapidly materialize. Materializing immediately afterward was Ling Han's physical body. He walked out from the immortal flames, not a single wound on his body. Moreover, he was spirited and full of energy, clearly having returned to the peak of his powers. Holy motherfucker. Everyone was stunned into silence. Both your body and your mind were destroyed, yet you're still able to revive? Are you still fucking human? At this moment, a sense of helplessness gripped at everyone's heart. Regardless of how heavy his wounds, Ling Han had still been able to recover. Now, however, he had performed something even more miraculous. His body had clearly been obliterated, and his divine sense had clearly been shattered, yet he was still able to revive and appear before them, full of energy as if nothing had ever happened. What the actual fuck? Was it genuinely impossible to kill this person? Fear spread through their minds, and they couldn't help but consider this possibility. Ling Han's actions and feats had already defied all the rules of normality. Thus, they wouldn't be surprised even if someone told them that Ling Han was invincible and undying. Moreover, Ling Han had not only returned to the peak of his powers after rising from the ashes, but the effects of his previous demonification had also been completely eliminated. Heh, this old man isn't late to the show, is he? There was a hearty laugh as a slightly hunchbacked old man appeared before them. 4 heavenly bodies hovered behind him, all of them equal in size. Peak stage of the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. However, there were still lengths of chain wrapped around the old man, causing him to appear extremely strange. Looking closely, one could further tell that these chains weren't actually real chains. Rather, they were intangible chains that had been branded into his body. Su ran. Ling Han couldn't help but feel overjoyed. "Senior, you've finally arrived." Su Ran chuckled upon hearing this. He had also had a mental battle with himself before finally deciding to come over. If he were at the peak of his powers, he naturally wouldn't be afraid. However, his cultivation was sealed now, and it was fair to say that his situation was similar to that of the notionless saint. He also appeared powerful yet was actually weak in reality. In any case, Ling Han finally had a powerful reinforcement by his side. The morale of the elites from the 2 majestic empires had already dropped significantly. Now that an elite at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier had come to reinforce Ling Han, they more so felt an urge to retreat. Anyhow, it was impossible to kill this brat, so what was the point of fighting against him? Moreover, they had all seen the effects of the flames of death. This was a flame that couldn't be extinguished and would combust their life force until they died. None of them wanted to die. There's nothing to worry about. This person's cultivation has been sealed, so he's nothing more than trash. The Eternity Sky Emperor immediately announced. He had even become suspicious of the notionless saint, so how could he not sense the true ability of someone at the same cultivation level as himself? Indeed, the Jade Drop Emperor said with a nod. Heaven and earth are just, and even saints can't escape the fate of death, much less you. The Eternity Sky Emperor pointed at Ling Han, and continued, I refuse to believe that you can rise from the dead again. Ling Han wore an expression of disdain, saying, you can try if you want. However, he immediately started to lament in his mind, saying, wife, until when are you going to cultivate? I can't hold on for much longer. You're definitely going to die today, the Eternity Sky Emperor announced in a booming voice. His voice was imbued with his willpower, and this was an announcement of his resolve. The Emperor had spoken, and this was an imperial decree. I beg to differ, a cold voice suddenly said from the sky. This voice was filled with a boundless sense of domineering haughtiness. Boom! A figure descended from the sky. Pung! A shock wave burst into the surroundings. Pa, 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 pa. Numerous heavenly body tier elites collapsed to the ground. What was more terrifying was the fact that they couldn't crawl back up. This person possessed an overwhelming aura of dominance, one that could pressure their willpower onto the brink of collapse. How could one possess such a domineering aura? A look of disbelief spread across Ling Han's face. However, he was delighted as he exclaimed, second brother. This person was none other than the Rain Emperor. Ha, fourth brother. The Rain Emperor stood tall and proud, the aura emanating from him surprisingly at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. However, it was only at the early stage, not the peak stage. This didn't matter, however, and Ling Han was simply over the moon to reunite with him. Second brother, as expected. You came across a great opportunity. Back at that time, the Rain Emperor had suddenly vanished in the Yellow Spring Mystery Realm, and Ling Han had speculated that he had received the inheritance of an Eternal River tier elite. However, that had merely been speculation, after all. Now that the Rain Emperor had finally appeared before him, it was only natural that Ling Han was beside himself with delight. I indeed came across some great opportunities, the Rain Emperor said with a nod. I had already returned to the Great Ling Empire, and I especially hurried over here after hearing their accounts. I've troubled you, second brother, Ling Han said apologetically. This wasn't supposed to be a battle for the Great Ling Empire, yet he had somehow ended up making it one. We're brothers, so there's no need to say such things, the Rain Emperor said. He then turned to the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor, and said, You two are trying to kill my fourth brother? The Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor were both extremely pissed off. What's with your attitude? Why are the people beside Ling Han all so arrogant? Aren't there any ordinary people beside him? Right now, there were two elites at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier beside Ling Han. Although Ling Han hadn't reached this level himself, he had already proved that his battle prowess couldn't be judged based on his cultivation level alone. Were they still going to battle? Of course they were. If they missed this opportunity, could they still kill Ling Han in the future? Moreover, there were a plethora of secret techniques on Ling Han that they were hell-bent on obtaining. You want to die? Then come and battle me, the Rain Emperor said in a domineering manner. He wasn't afraid of the two emperors in the least. Chapter 1421 Exhausted. In terms of a domineering mannerism, even Ling Han was no match for the Rain Emperor. After all, the Rain Emperor had been born as an emperor, and he more so possessed the mind of a ruler. As such, his domineering temperament was naturally unmatched. It was as if the Rain Emperor was born to be an emperor and to be transcendent above others. Under his domineering display, the remaining elites all felt numb with fear. They felt a strong urge to retreat from this battle. This was the true might of a ruler. You're but an elite who has just advanced to the consummate level. How dare you act with such arrogance, the Eternity Sky Emperor said in disdain. He immediately slashed with his sword. He refused to believe that the Rain Emperor would be as difficult to kill as Ling Han. Ling Han unleashed heaven's might, while the Rain Emperor charged forward. The two brothers were going to work together in this manner. Pung! Just like in the past, the Rain Emperor unleashed his Son of Heaven fist technique. However, he had already elevated this fist technique to a completely new height. With a single punch, it was as if all beings under heaven were going to submit to him. With overwhelming power, this fist smashed toward the Eternity Sky Emperor. It was evident that although the Rain Emperor had obtained the inheritance of an Eternal River tier elite, he still hadn't abandoned his own path. Quite the contrary, in fact. He had merely used his received inheritance to rapidly raise his cultivation level. Meanwhile, he was still walking his own path. This was the quality of a true king tier. He wouldn't settle for repeating the path of an ancestor. Ling Han had a feeling that if the Rain Emperor had accepted the inheritance and followed its path, he could have already advanced to the Eternal River tier at this moment. However, if he had done so, he would have simply limited himself to a path that had already been taken by someone in the past. He would merely be a follower. Boom! The attacks of the Rain Emperor and the Eternity Sky Emperor collided together with a resounding rumble. The Rain Emperor wasn't using a god tool, yet his attacks were far more aggressive, each punch immediately followed by another punch. He showed little care for how powerful or mighty his opponent's god tool was. This was his style of battle. Regardless of whether his opponent was stronger or weaker than him, he definitely had to obtain an advantage in terms of demeanor and disposition. Meanwhile, Ling Han trained his gaze in on the Jade Drop Emperor. The Rain Emperor didn't possess a powerful defense, nor would he be able to rise from the ashes if he were killed. Thus, Ling Han naturally couldn't allow the two emperors to team up against him. This was a chaotic battle between four powerful elites. However, Ling Han and the Rain Emperor were at a clear disadvantage. This couldn't be helped. Even though the Rain Emperor possessed a battle prowess that could surpass 6 stars, his cultivation level was already at a disadvantage of 3 stars compared to his opponent. Moreover, the Eternity Sky Emperor was also a 4-star genius. Not only that, but he also wielded a god tool, and could draw on the power of the nation. Even after having his battle prowess suppressed by 2 stars by Ling Han, he was still slightly more powerful than the Rain Emperor. However, he was only slightly more powerful. Otherwise, without the freakish physique and insane recovery ability of Ling Han, the Rain Emperor would have already been beaten into oblivion long ago. Even so, the Rain Emperor's situation still wasn't looking too good. This was because more elites had joined the battle, with several of them at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. Su Ran naturally joined as well, and he attracted the attention of one elite at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. However, it was only one out of many. The 2 brothers were both drenched in blood. Although most of the attacks were blocked by Ling Han, the Rain Emperor would still be heavily wounded by those that slipped through. Ling Han and the Rain Emperor furiously ingested alchemical pills to help their cause. However, such wanton ingestion of pills would naturally cause them to develop immunity to the effects of these pills. Their recovery became slower and slower, and they were already close to exhausting all of their power. Do we still have any reinforcements? Ling Han shook his head. If the Stone Emperor and North Emperor arrived and used their supreme treasures to defend against these attacks, they would naturally be invincible against anyone at the heavenly body tier. In fact, they could even withstand the attacks of Eternal River tier elites for a short period of time. However, it would be useless even if he were on Cloud Apex planet, to say nothing of the fact that he was on Joint Peace planet. After all, where would he find them? What to do? What to do? Second brother, you return first. Ling Han said. He could still hold on for a short while. Meanwhile, even though the Rain Emperor had become significantly more powerful, he was still far inferior to him when it came to defensive ability and recovery ability. By return, Ling Han was obviously referring to the Black Tower. No need to hurry, the Rain Emperor replied, rejecting Ling Han's proposal. He knew that Ling Han wanted to rescue Empress Luan Xing, and he also knew that she was one of his brother's future wives. Thus, he would fight alongside him until the last moment. Right now, he could still battle. Humph, both of you are destined to die here, the Eternity Sky Emperor said with a cold chuckle. You two can accompany each other in the afterlife, the Jade Drop Emperor added, killing intent exuding from his body. Boom, boom, boom. A dozen or so heavenly body tier elites charged over, their might overwhelming and earth-shattering. Pung! Ling Han and the Rain Emperor were both sent flying backward, blood exploding from their bodies. They then landed heavily on the ground. Neither of them had reached the pinnacle of the heavenly body tier, so how could they withstand the attack of so many elites? Being able to resist until now was already a miracle in and of itself. The Eternity Sky Emperor sneered coldly, and the Jade Drop Emperor also sneered coldly. In fact, the heavenly body tier elites of the 2 majestic empires were all sneering coldly. Only Chu Chioshua, the left minister, and the others wore expressions of utter despair. They could naturally see that Ling Han and the Rain Emperor were already nearing the limits of their power. Because of a traitor, the Chaotic Star's majestic empire was now on the verge of death. They couldn't bring themselves to accept this. Ling Han crawled up, and he was just about to transport the Rain Emperor into the Black Tower. Right now, he couldn't care less about revealing this secret. However, he suddenly faltered at this moment. Tong! There was soft beating sound, and it would have been impossible to hear it unless one had been concentrating hard enough. However, just how sensitive was Ling Han's divine sense? He immediately pricked his ears. Because, this sound had come from within the small mountain. This was the sound of a heartbeat. Previously, there hadn't been any sound from the mountain. Yet, right now, there was the sound of a heartbeat. What did this signify? Had Empress Luan Xing exited her state of cultivation? Was she about to exit seclusion? Tong! There was another beating sound, and it was even louder this time. Boom! A column of light exploded from the small mountain and soared into the sky. This instantly caught everyone's attention. Was the Empress about to exit seclusion? The elites instantly halted their battles, all of them turning to gaze at the stone door. Pung! The stone door was violently shattered, causing shards of broken stone to fly everywhere. Pa, 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 pa. These stone shards burst into the surroundings, their terrifying power forcing everyone to dodge or block. When this rain of stone shards finally settled, everyone saw a breathtakingly beautiful woman appear at the door of the secret room. Empress Luan Xing. Huh? Why is it only her? Didn't she enter seclusion with the 9 kings? However, upon seeing Empress Luan Xing alone, Ling Han knew that she had successfully broken through. Her 9 clones had returned to her main body, allowing her cultivation to take another step forward. Pinnacle level of the heavenly body tier. He breathed a sigh of relief. In fact, it wouldn't have mattered even if Empress Luan Xing hadn't broken through to the pinnacle level. After all, he could easily transport her into the Black Tower. Your Majesty. Chu Qiushue, the left minister, and the others finally found the source of their confidence, all of them kneeling down to greet Empress Luan Xing. None of them had ever felt so fragile and helpless before. Empress Luan Xing. The pupils of the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor constricted when they saw Empress Luan Xing appearing at the door of the secret room. This was an elite who could genuinely match their power. In fact, she had even managed to forcefully suppress the Eternity Sky Emperor with a slab of stone before, forcing him to hand over the 9 demons' sword. Humph, you're already devoid of the power of the nation, while we can draw the power of the nation that's at least 3 times more powerful than before. You stand no chance against us, the Jade Drop Emperor immediately said. Follow me, and I can even give my throne to you. Moreover, if we team up, the entire world will one day become ours. Bulsh *T, the Eternity Sky Emperor immediately shouted. What he can offer you, I can also offer you. In fact, I can definitely do better than him. At this moment, were they still 2 supreme emperors? They were more like 2 ordinary men fighting over a woman. Quang. Before Empress Luan Xing could even open her mouth to speak, tribulation clouds had already gathered in the sky, thunder rumbling as heavenly tribulation prepared to descend. Heavenly tribulation? It can't be. Empress Luan Xing has clearly reached the consummate level already. If she faces another heavenly tribulation. Gasp. Eternal River Tier. Chapter 1422 I can't tolerate this. Empress Luan Xing stood proudly, unafraid even though heavenly tribulation was about to befall her. She merely scanned the surroundings with a baleful expression in her eyes. Point Star City had already been conquered, so the totem of the majestic empire had naturally disappeared as well. Since she couldn't detect the power of the nation, she was naturally aware that the chaotic star's majestic empire had already fallen. However, she couldn't care less about this. What she cared about was the people. The Empress' gaze stopped on Ling Han. Upon seeing his blood-soaked figure and wounded life force, she couldn't help but feel pained and furious. Needless to say, Ling Han had definitely participated in the bloody battle and become wounded in order to protect her and prevent her from being disturbed. Moreover, she knew that Ling Han possessed the Black Tower, this spatial god tool being his most powerful defense. As long as he hid inside it, even saints wouldn't be able to find him. However, for her sake, Ling Han had resolutely guarded the stone door without retreating. What more could a woman ask for? An air of primal chaos shrouded the Empress' face. However, everyone here was a heavenly body tier elite, so who couldn't see through this thin mask? They all felt boundless jealousy. Who had ever witnessed the Empress gazing at a man with such a pained and caring expression before? Even Chu Qiushue and the others cursed in their minds. Ling Han and Ding Lian hadn't been lying to them. The Empress genuinely had a close relationship with Ling Han. However, the question was, how had they developed this relationship? One had to realize that the Empress and Ling Han had only met each other less than 10 times. However, little did they know that the Empress was a member of the 9-snake tribe, meaning that she could separate 9 clones from her main body. One of them had already become acquainted with Ling Han long ago. Moreover, in the end, the Empress had even been locked together with Ling Han and almost been forced to copulate with him. In fact, she had almost reverse-raped Ling Han. The Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor naturally saw Empress Luan Xing's shifting expression as well. Rage instantly welled up inside them. This was a rage 10 times more intense than they had ever experienced before. No, 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. They had already felt uneasy when hearing Ling Han refer to Empress Luan Xing as his wife before, yet upon thinking of the Empress' personality and demeanor, they had concluded that Ling Han was merely experiencing unrequited love. After all, how could such an aloof and noble Empress fall for a man? Even if she did fall for a man, it should have been them. However, reality gave them a shocking slap across the face. That caring and loving look instantly shattered their hearts. No, even their balls were shattered. However, how could rulers such as them have glass hearts? Their disappointment quickly transformed into a raging killing intent. So what if you have feelings for him? As long as I kill him and capture you, we can slowly make love and cultivate your feeling for me. Kill, kill, kill. I must kill that young man. The 2 emperors were boiling with killing intent. Although they had gone all out in an attempt to kill Ling Han just then, they had only done so out of fear of Ling Han's frightening potential. Now, however, their killing intent was born out of jealousy. Even if Ling Han were a defenseless weakling, they would still do everything in their abilities to kill him. Boom! They resolutely attacked, not holding back even though the Empress was already present. The reason for this was simple. Heavenly tribulation was about to descend, so how could Empress Luan Xing help Ling Han? Even if she successfully overcame heavenly tribulation, that would already be half a day later. At that time, Ling Han would already be an ice-cold corpse. You're seeking death. Empress Luan Xing roared. She stared daggers at the 2 emperors, killing intent exploding from her body. She waved her right hand. Boom! The 4 heavenly bodies behind her started to undulate. These 4 heavenly bodies were no different from those at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, yet the aura that emanated from her was 100 times, perhaps even 1,000 times more powerful than that of the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor. Heavens! The 2 emperors have already reached the peak stage of the heavenly body tier, so how can she be so much more powerful than them? Pung! Pung! The 2 emperors were sent flying back in unison, their faces as white as a sheet and clouds of blood exploding from their bodies. Are you okay? However, Empress Luan Xing didn't so much as glance at them, her eyes remaining fixed on Ling Han the entire time. There was a pained expression on her exquisitely beautiful face. Fuck. 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 Chu Choshua and the others could barely believe their eyes. Meanwhile, the elites of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire and Jade Drop Majestic Empire were all going wild with jealousy. Who hadn't heard of the Empress Beauty before? Now that they had witnessed her beauty, they realized that she was even more beautiful than words could describe. After all, their imaginations of her beauty hadn't even reached 1/10,000th of her true beauty. However, such a stunning beauty was actually expressing care for another man? Her caring expression was enough to make them go crazy. That brat. He'll die a wretched death. However, how is Empress Luan Xing so powerful? She's far too powerful. Ling Han smiled and replied, everything's okay as long as you're okay. Fuck. You're still being lovey-dovey? Are you not afraid of being killed sooner? The Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor had already been tremendously jealous. Upon seeing this show of tender love, it was instantly as if this jealousy had been further rubbed into their faces. This was truly a horrible feeling. Already severely wounded, they couldn't help but instantly vomit mouthfuls of blood upon being stabbed in the heart like this. Empress Luanxing nodded, and said, "Those who hurt you, I'll make them pay a heavy price." Ling Han nodded in reply. After Empress Luanxing advanced to the pinnacle level, he was confident that she would be invincible, at least within this galaxy. Thus, he naturally didn't need to tell her to be careful and such. Meanwhile, Chu Qiushue and the others lamented in their minds. "Empress, can't you see us? You can't only have an eye for him. At least give us a fleeting glance and thank us for our hard work, please." However, if the Empress acted as such, would she still be the Empress? Quang. At this moment, a bolt of lightning arced down, directly striking at Empress Luanxing's head. The Empress casually raised a hand. Pa! The bolt of lightning was forcefully crushed into oblivion. Fuck! Are my eyes deceiving me? That's heavenly tribulation. Yet, she can crush it with a single strike? Is she still human? However, Ling Han's eyes instantly lit up. Empress Luanxing definitely wasn't advancing to just the early stage of the pinnacle level. Rather, she was advancing to the peak stage of the pinnacle level. How could one reach the peak stage of the pinnacle level in one step? This was naturally as a result of her 9 clones. While others could only advance once, she would be advancing 10 times. As such, was it surprising that she was advancing to the peak stage of the pinnacle level in one step? Right now, she possessed a power that was equivalent to the early stage of the low extreme of the eternal river tier. That being the case, wouldn't facing heavenly tribulation at the early stage of the pinnacle level be a walk in the park? Her strength was already 1,000 times more powerful. Quang! 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 Divine lightning continued to descend, one bolt after another. This was incredibly terrifying, yet more terrifying than this was Empress Luanxing. Using her fists, she easily shattered every single bolt of divine lightning. The elites all became numb with shock, cold chills shooting down their spines. They had never seen someone overcome heavenly tribulation so easily before. Of course, this was because they had never seen Ling Han facing heavenly tribulation. If he didn't use tribulation to temper his godly bones, they would be nothing more than a light massage to him. You people invaded my territory. This, I can allow. You people slaughtered my citizens. This, I can endure. However, you people actually attempted to hurt him. This, I can't tolerate. Empress Luanxing was bathed in divine lightning as she said this, yet she slowly walked toward the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor, ice-cold killing intent on her beautiful face. Whom was she kidding? She could tolerate people invading her territory and killing her citizens? However, what did the Empress comparison highlight? Ling Han. He was more important than her territory and citizens. These words were torture for the Eternity Sky Emperor and Jade Drop Emperor. Meanwhile, Chu Qiushue and the others all wore extremely strange expressions. They had fought to the death, yet they were nothing in the eyes of the Empress. They had all shed blood for the majestic empire, so why did only Ling Han receive care from the Empress? Sigh. By saying this, aren't you afraid of bringing grief to your citizens? Oh, that's right, the Chaotic Star's majestic empire has already ceased to exist. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.